Welcome to Evan the Counselor Live. I'm Evan the Counselor, and I wanted to hop on and chat with you all really quickly before we hop into the main interview. Our guest today is Khodi Rain. Some of you may have seen him on TikTok. He has a whole page dedicated to addiction and his story and the fact that he created his own recovery program. And I wanted to interview him because his views on addiction are extremely unique. They differ from mine in many ways, but as you'll hear in the podcast, there's a lot that we agree on. And I wanted to come on and talk because I really didn't share with him any of my views of addiction for quite a while. So the conversation went for a long time because we had a really good banter and the conversation took a lot of twists and turns. But eventually I did start to tell him about my views and my experience with addiction that is different from his. So I really encourage you, even though it's a longer conversation, to stick around and hear that. And I think you're going to get a lot of value from that and hearing about different perspectives on addiction. And I'm curious to hear about what you think about the conversation. So whatever medium you're on, if you're on YouTube, I'd love to see you comment on this, and I'd love to hear your opinion on our conversation and what you believe about addiction. So without further ado, this is Khodi Rain. Enjoy. Oh, and one other quick thing. You may notice that I sound absolutely terrible, and that is because I realized I contracted COVID last night. So today I'm just trying to keep my fever under 100 degrees and powering through with cold brew and Dayquil. I don't know if I recommend that. Go speak with your doctor. Anyways, for those of you who are new, I normally do not sound like this, and luckily when we filmed the podcast, I was not sick, so I sound much better. Anyways, enjoy. All right, welcome to Evan the Counselor Live. I'm Evan the Counselor. I'm super excited for our guest today. We have Mr. Khodi Rain, and Khodi is a fellow content creator on TikTok, and I'm sure he's elsewhere. But I wanted to reach out to Khodi because his content is all about addiction, and as many of you know, that is probably my number one specialty. And so I was just really drawn seeing his content, that he has a really unique view of addiction, a really unique story. So I feel like I had to talk to him. Khodi, what's up, man?
What is up, brother? Thank you so much, man.
Yeah.
I've been immersed in your content, and I've been we're even gonna say addicted to the addiction, the addicted to the truth, man. We're all truth seekers, and we all see the depths in each other, especially those that are actively influencing a community in a positive direction, which is super duper powerful. I'm a huge fan of unity. Support without sacrifice is another way of saying it. And I appreciate you inviting me on here, man. I value you as a person and what you're doing. We're all better because you exist, bro. So thank you for having me.
Oh, man, thanks. I appreciate the kind words. And, obviously I invited you because I'm a mutual fan of yours. And it's always funny. I think I mention this in every episode because usually I am interviewing, fellow creators on TikTok. And I
Yeah.
always joke that there's this like natural progression, which is like, you follow me, I follow you, you comment on my stuff, I comment, and you feel like you get to know the person,
Right,
right?
right.
But then we've never had a conversation, but it kind of
Yeah.
feels like we know each other, and have interacted. But then eventually, as a natural progression of that relationship, one person invites the other on their podcast. So I beat you
But
to it there.
it's really interesting how that works. And since I've been on TikTok, we develop. I mean, you got to think about this, man. The people that are in your life, who's in your life fairly often? And I'm walking to the gym every single day. So there's people that are in my life, and I don't even know their names, but we fist bump in 106-degree weather in Arizona, both going separate directions, living a life that we know nothing about the other person, yet we feel this emotional entanglement with them. They're to be expected. It's you expect to see them, and on average it takes like 5 or 6 times before you start to kind of go, oh, I recognize you, I see you, oh,
Yeah.
it's Evan, oh, all right. And then when you're not on TikTok or you don't see that person, you realize the weight that they have in your existence,
Hmm.
regardless if you're operating from purpose or just habit or whatever. So that is one of those things that happens. And then one of the coolest things is you become like one of the biggest supporters of them, even though you may have never ever interacted before. And one of my favorite things is looking at a creator and going like, dude, I hope they have 1 million right now. I hope they're at 2 million. I hope they gotta be blowing up, man. They gotta be winning. Either way, I'm gonna support them. And so we create this emotional entanglement
Hmm.
with people that are, in motion, right? People that we connect with, and people that we see something in. And that's absolutely true, brother. I can't even tell you how many times I've just been chilling around. I'm like, no way. My inbox is blowing up. I love this guy. She's so awesome. Holy crap. And then that just sparks the unity and sparks the validation of purpose and direction and effort, man. And that's why I love, dude, anytime I get an opportunity to chat with someone that I respect and admire, dude, I'm all in, regardless of time zones.
Oh yeah, and that's funny too, because you mentioned like, run, you meet people, run into the gym, but then we live in this strange modern world, especially if you're creating content, and you feel like you get to know them because you're seeing that, you're seeing them speak, but you're not really, I mean, yeah, you comment, you're not necessarily fully interacting with them, but there is something like personal about it. I talked to like one guy who was on TV, and he talked about like how there's just this unique dynamic of somebody who's like a fan of a TV star or something like that, because they like feel like they know you already. They feel like you're in their home,
Mhm.
right? And especially nowadays, like when you're on TikTok, you're on your phone, I don't know about you, but I'm constantly,
I got an addiction. I'm chasing the dopamine all day
yeah,
long.
I've been better about it as far as like when I was first on TikTok, just like being on it all the time,
Yeah,
but it is like, like how we used to watch TV. But yeah, so I think that it's kind of interesting how that connection comes up. But yeah, I would, but anyway, just to kick us off, I know a little bit about you, and we talked a little
Mm,
bit before we hopped on. But yeah, I'm really curious to hear just, a little bit about your story and how you went from who you were to creating content on TikTok and
100%.
having a program for, a recovery, support for people. So I'd love to hear about
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah, man. It's a huge, obviously, there's an entire life before this moment. But to summarize how we got here, literally every single decision you and I have ever made, everything we did and didn't do has led us to connect. And it takes a certain amount, sometimes an insane amount of personal growth and authenticity and understanding and pain to be someone that brings value to other people. Um, and my upbringing, I was a dude that was bullied. I was a dude that was left for dead. I was a dude that was surrounded by alcoholics and drug addicts. Technically, I'm white trash. If you were to put this on paper, you'd be like, yeah, he's trailer park, and it makes sense. Uh, but with all of that, constantly being in survival mode and constantly looking for coping mechanisms through the chaos, alcohol became a major, major, major staple. I started drinking alcohol when I was 8 years old, not heavily, of course, but that was my first experimentation.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, party through teen years and whatnot. As I kind of raised myself. Lots of traveling, lots of narcissistic abuse, lots of violent in-home activity, domestic violence, things like that. So it was a struggle growing up, and alcohol basically became my best friend. And which it happens far too often. It's advertised that way. You feel the pain, go ahead and drink the pain away. Are you upset? Go ahead and drink the emotion away. And that just became my habit. And so that went through high school, and then I became an adult, went to college, ended up being homeless. I was homeless for a year, used alcohol to cope with that. Lived in a box, lived in a shack, lived in a motorhome, lived on the beach, struggling for a burrito or a 40 ounce. So thankfully it was in California, right? So it was, near the water. If you're going to be homeless, might as well be homeless on the beach, honestly. With all of that, you look at, your conditioning, and then what happens is you create a dependency. You start developing your life around what brings you pleasure. And that's where I started to like move heavily into drinking often, drinking at high risk,
Yeah.
because at that point, my tolerance has gone up. We're all trained to see how much alcohol we could drink without dying, right? One is just, you're not cool if you could have just one. That's ridiculous, right? So, but then I was just mentioning, you know, I became a DJ through all of the struggles. It was DJing and alcohol, and spinning records was therapeutic in association with alcohol. And when you look at that community, the rave community, DJ community, the music industry in general, that's a major staple. Alcohol, drugs, and all that stuff. So moving through that as an unhealthy person, actively seeking purpose and using my struggles as a driving force, such as I don't want to go back to that, or I don't want to feel the pain, or I want to escape this, using music and alcohol as my, we'll say, propeller. I was able to spin records for a living to the point where I was playing with numerous celebrities. I was being flown all over the place. I was playing in hotels and bars and restaurants and big festivals, raves, beach parties, private events, rooftops. I think I did over 5,000 events in 16 years.
Wow.
And so that whole scene became my personality. Little did I know that alcohol is a personality. Alcohol is a narcissist. So as my mental health was depleting, I started acting more and more like a narcissist, taking on the behavioral traits of alcoholic, of someone who's struggling, someone who's successful, but struggling to stay afloat, successful, but unhappy. And then it came down to a situation where my mental health was so low that alcohol became the only way that I could function. So for about 2.5 years out of the 16 years of drinking at high risk, I became a high functioning alcoholic. This means that I was taking 30 to 45 shots a day. So at home, I'd be drinking 12, 15, 20 shots before going to work and DJing. Then I'd have another 10, 15, 20 drinks with the patrons, get back home, can't sleep from all the Red Bull and all the excitement. So I take another 5, 6, 7 shots, pass out, wake up with the cold sweats, wake up shaking, wake up vibrating, wake up with nightmares, wake up with DTs, and then do the whole thing all over again. And I lived that way for 2.5 years.
Were you like you said like a functioning alcoholic?
Yeah.
Were you like belligerent, or were you one of those ones that like no one would really know?
No, you would never know that I just killed a fifth of vodka.
Yeah, isn't that crazy how it, the body, the fact that you could build a tolerance and your blood alcohol was probably through the roof, and
Yeah.
you like go to the hospital or something, they'd be like, this guy's like like the Walking Dead. I mean, you hear so many
Yeah.
stories of that. People go to the hospital and the doctors drop their jaw. Like, how are you
Yeah.
standing with like a,
Yeah.
point
100%.
three, or something crazy?
It's insane. And that's the scariest part in retrospect. When you're deep in the sauce, you go like, oh no, I'm good. I'm good. I need this. It's my medicine now. That's the trippy part. And that's what I talk to people on TikTok about is so many people go, well, I'm genetically predisposed to have a high tolerance, right? I've been drinking for a long time, so my tolerance is really high. I could handle more. What we don't realize, and the conversation we don't have, is that doesn't mean you're better at drinking alcohol. It means your
When you're
system is weaker and isn't processing it effectively. Therefore, you have to force your liver and force your bloodstream to basically cope with ridiculous amounts and struggle your way to a buzz. As alcohol is a numbing agent, not only do you emotionally not care, but you physically don't feel any pains or anything like that. We just kind of act upon our tolerance. So we are causing more physical pain and emotional damage before we catch a buzz. That becomes our normality. And
Well,
that you don't get better. It's not like your tolerance goes down. because you're not training your tolerance, you're serving your tolerance. So if 10 shots becomes your minimum, it's not long before 12, 13, 14, 15 shots, which is a fifth, becomes pretty standard operating behavior.
And tolerance is the devil, when it comes to addiction. I was just like thinking right now, and I never thought too deeply about this, but like, what if, like a thought experiment, what if tolerance wasn't a thing? Like, what
Mm.
would that even, like, would there be more people addicted? Would there be less people? Like, I don't know. I'd have to really think hard about that, because that takes away one of the biggest downsides,
Yeah,
but it also, takes away one of the biggest hooks, that
100%.
keep people trapped. So it's like, would there be more addiction or less? Like,
Well,
the
check this
world.
out. I ask people, this is one of my biggest questions, because this is what ultimately led me to liver failure. Is I ask people this. This is because alcohol is a relationship, right? It's somebody you hang out with, just like the person I see on the street. How often are you hanging out with alcohol, and how do you feel when you're around it? So we look at this and go, would the amount of alcohol that you drink right now kill somebody that's never had alcohol before? Every single person says yes, absolutely. I also say, would you give, say your little brother, little sister, the neighborhood kid came over, he just turned 21, would you give him or expect her to drink the exact amount of alcohol that you drink right now their first time? No, they would die. They would die. Every person I've ever spoken to, hundreds of thousands of people, either on TikTok or on YouTube or Facebook or wherever, or on podcasts, these comments all lead back to, I wish I can get a buzz off one. That means you're a healthy person capable of processing a poison effectively.
Well, yeah, it's crazy. It was what you don't realize, right? Because it'd be easy to conflate, let's say, you walking around functional and being like, oh, my body's fine, but really it's just dying on the inside, right? And then all of a sudden, and you see that with some people who especially ride that line, right? Let's say it never gets so bad that like they just have to stop, but years alcohol is very different than any other drug in that respect, that usually it takes much longer for it to get its hooks in you, but when
Yep.
it does, it is as bad as heroin. And that's what people
100%.
don't understand. Now, certain people are more susceptible to getting that far to that level. But even people who never do, it's like they don't realize that their body is they go to the doctor and they get their liver panel, and they don't even realize that they've done severe damage to their body, even though things may seem fairly normal to them.
100%. And you'd be surprised. I can't even tell you how many comments I get. Why does my right side hurt every time I drink? What does it mean when your left side hurts? Your liver is struggling, brother. That's what that is. Your liver is huge. It's meant to, everything goes through your liver. It's the filter of your body. Like, you lose everything. Your thoughts go through your liver, literally. So if it's one of the biggest organs that can do some of the most powerful things and it is struggling, bro, you only have one of these things. And we don't, in the interesting part about it is, alcohol is so amazing that it will convince you that it doesn't hurt. It will physically numb that pain, either emotionally or literally physically, which, as our inhibitions are lowered, if we don't care, does the pain really matter? Or if the pain does hurt, but you don't care enough about yourself, who cares? It's such this manipulation tactic. And I feel like alcohol is its own survival mechanism. It's a leech, it's a parasite. It will do anything to stay alive because it is powerless without the human body. It is powerless without, if it's not being consumed, it holds no power, no weight, no control, no influence whatsoever. And once I say this so often, man, because what go on what you just said, you're only one drink away. You're only one drink away from either activating that gene that's going to turn you into an alcoholic, make you physically and emotionally
Yeah.
dependent, or it's one circumstance where you've created an emotional entanglement with the poison, with the sauce, just like that person on the street, just like Evan on TikTok. Damn, dude, he said that one thing. And now I'm looking forward to seeing him because he brings dopamine. He brings this. He helps me forget about that. Well, that's what that one shot does. That's what that one drink does. And as soon as you drink from that emotional place, and as soon as you literally latch on, then it becomes a staple in how you live life. This is why most people don't know they're an alcoholic until it's too late, until they go, damn, I'm starting to realize that it's harder for me not to drink. It's so easy for me to say yes, and it feels nearly impossible to say no. The trippy part about this is neurologically, if we are constantly under the influence, or alcohol is a major staple in our life, that means the codes, the neurological pathways that you're creating are being written under a false reality. So without the alcohol, we feel drunk. We now feel weird because our daily behaviors, the world that we're familiar with, is now unfamiliar. So the only way to go back to normality, damn it, is to have a shot, have a drink, have a margarita, a glass of wine, whatever. Our body feels right. We're able to think, we're able to process. Most people don't know that they are there. And that's how subtle alcohol is. Because as you mentioned, dude, it takes so much longer for you to become an alcoholic. It's not like cigarettes. You can't just smoke a pack of cigarettes and be addicted to nicotine, or you can't just like drink a bottle of vodka and be addicted to alcohol. But smoke a pack of cigarettes, dude, and you're gonna wake up with a you'll feel like crap but still crave cigarettes.
There's so much you said there that is interesting and profound. And it almost gave me the chills a little bit when you talked about how alcohol needs the human body to like it's a leech. And it's funny because like, all right, alcohol is like literally, it's just a thing. It's a liquid. It's a chemical. It doesn't have a consciousness, but there is almost a spiritual significance to alcohol, right? Or any substance, right? Regardless if you're atheist, agnostic, and maybe it's just a giant metaphor, but there really is a spirit to addiction and alcoholism, right? Because it literally is like a leech, or those movies where like an alien comes down and like takes over your mind, and it's no longer you and it's your body. And that's why so many like family members like, what happened to my poor little Johnny? He used to be so sweet, and now he's just like, you could see it in someone's eyes. There's an evil
Yeah.
to it. And it's one of those things too that if addiction, let's just say, is a spirit, and for those of you who are more scientific, this
Yeah.
is a metaphor, but let's just say, it has that property of a spirit. What's so insidious about it is that it doesn't want to kill you right away. That's no fun. It
Mm-mm.
wants to take every single thing away from you, and then when there's nothing left, then it takes your life. It's like,
100%.
how can, like, something nefarious had to make that, like
Yeah.
like that just doesn't come about naturally. I mean, maybe it
Yeah.
does. I don't know how, but
So powerful. I love how you say that too. And this brings up, as a spiritual person, someone that meditates and practices spirituality, and on that same sidewalk, I'm seeing signs and connecting with the universe and crying over bees that are sharing a nest, and like having an emotional entanglement with a butterfly, and like, look at the caterpillar. Like, it's so amazing. It's trippy because, yeah, when you look at alcohol as a powerless entity, it holds no power unless we give it the host. You become the host.
yeah.
We can activate. The trippy part with this is when mom's going, what happened to my little Johnny? Johnny comes back when he drinks. This is when there's this huge shift in the psyche, because for anybody that has an addiction, the safest space for anyone that has an addiction is on the substance. It's the
Yeah.
withdrawals. It's the
Yep.
withdrawals that
Yep.
make people psycho, that make people do anything. I remember
That's a good
standing
point.
outside grocery store shaking, like, don't look at me, dude. Like, I need my medicine. Like, this is a thing. Because you are stepping outside of a universe that is familiar. And any person, any human, even the nervous system, as soon as it starts to trigger, or start to recognize that it's in a space that's unfamiliar or unwarranted, such as regular, normal, cognitive, when that becomes the abstract, then your body starts to flip out and it will take care of itself. Your brain will always sacrifice you to save itself. It doesn't know any different, man. And that means if your body has to die before your brain does, it's going to do whatever it has to do, even if that means drinking more of the poison, smoking more of the whatever, injecting, it doesn't matter. So that's the parasitic idea of this, man. And that this brings up this massive concept of every person, if alcohol or any substance is, we'll say, a reflection of the spiritual realm, then every single person who is addicted or utilizing a substance to escape, it's another way of saying that they're searching for peace. Every single person that drinks alcohol or is addicted to a substance is not there for the addiction. They are there for the illusion of peace. I don't like the thoughts I'm having. When those thoughts go away, they feel at peace. I don't like the pains I'm feeling. They're trying to escape that and seek the peace. This is why when I died, everything that I was searching for in every bottle was gifted to me when I was no longer human. Because my liver failed. I died from cardiac arrest while surviving liver failure. That's a whole nother extension of the story. But the truth with this is, as soon as I was no longer human and I was dead on a gurney or whatever, that the hospital bed, none of my misery, none of my pains, none of my anguish, my memories, turmoil, trauma, worries and anxieties, any of that, anger, it was all gone. Because I was no longer in pain. I was no longer emotionally entangled with the body I identified with. I was completely separated from that. So once I was gifted peace, then I knew what I was searching for, which is what you see here now. And I can talk about that in a bit. But the reality is the way I'm able to connect and the way I'm able to bring value is by helping people understand what peace really is and how to achieve that without utilizing a substance.
So yeah, there's so much truth there, and a couple things. One, that's why I think family members see that devil so closely, is because they're a threat, right? Like when you're doing an intervention or something on someone, like, everyone's trying to take that away, trying to separate you, right? Another metaphor, and it's very much in the line of what you're saying, is, what was I going to say? A toxic relationship, right? It literally resembles exactly a toxic relationship, where you become emotionally dependent, and those toxic relationships are more intoxicating than a healthy relationship, and you become dependent, and then so it starts to be all good, no bad, and then that really shifts. And then, like what you were saying, is then you want then you say, you know what, hey, Mr. Alcohol, we've had a good run. I want to, I think I'm going to leave now. And it says, oh, you do. Right. Like, let's, and then you realize, holy shit, like you were saying, people don't realize it until it's too late. You're like, oh no, I own your ass now.
Yeah. No, we are one. That's the trippy part about this.
Yeah.
Is we look at this from a parasitic aspect. I always look at the attributes of alcohol, not like its chemical properties, but how people act and how they think and how they process while under the influence. Mainly if it's like a major staple in how they relax and what they do, and it's just who they are. The trick with this is alcohol is a narcissist. It's a narcissist. It is when you've consumed too much of the poison, you are in a narcissistic relationship. And sadly, a survival tactic with a narcissist is to act narcissistically. So what happens is, as the narcissist becomes deeply ingrained in how you think, how you act, what you do, as a safety mechanism, you start processing the world in a specific way to serve the narcissist. Otherwise, there's emotional and physical pain.
Yeah.
So alcohol is a personality. And
Yeah.
this is a massive, massive trigger for so many people on TikTok. That's some of my best
Hmm.
content. You're going to have to develop a personality that has nothing to do with alcohol. This brings up the massive concept of, dude, drunk words aren't sober thoughts. People latch on to this because they're so like, they think that a healthy human, a regular, our core identity, the person we really are, Evan, you're that guy that would say that? No, you were drinking. The inhibitions were lowered. There was nobody stopping you from saying that. As a matter of
Yep.
fact, alcohol, the narcissist, was encouraging you to say that. And if you can't feel the pain and you don't care anyway, then what's stopping you from acting outwardly?
And that's something
That's
that's so
alcohol.
attractive too about alcohol, opposed to other drugs, is
Yeah.
like, I always say like it kills the prison warden, the prison guard, you know,
Think,
and then all
think,
of a sudden you're
think.
like, it's literally like knocking them out, and you're like, oh my
Yeah.
God. And there's something that feels liberating about it, because it is
Yeah.
so hard for some people, right? We're so inhibited by anxiety, by this voice that says, don't do this, stay in line, don't say
Yep.
this, like look this certain way, like,
Yeah.
it's an ego, so it really kind of like kills your ego in a way that keeps you
100%.
in check from like a social standpoint. And that's why so many
Exactly.
people like alcohol, and even people who use it recreationally, responsibly, they love that effect, because
Right.
in many ways that is kind of who they are, right? It's they're frolicking free through the field, and this is me,
Illusion of freedom. 100%. Thank you so much for bringing that up. That's such a powerful angle. It's truth. And one of the things I like to say is your consciousness is the bouncer of your mind. So as you consume more poison, and this is what blackouts and drunk is. If you drink the bouncer out, if your consciousness, your ability to say yes and no and pick left and right and all that stuff, if you kick that guy away from you, that's the bouncer. He's literally there to keep you safe. That's your bodyguard. If drinking enough poison forces your security team to dissipate, what's stopping you from doing anything? That's what a blackout is, right?
yeah.
There's nothing to stop you. And
Well, that
another kind
is
of,
like, I was gonna say that is like you're kind of like your id, or your it's like your unbridled child, right? Or like it takes the parents out, and it's like,
yeah,
oh shit, I'm gonna order pizza and eat ice cream
yeah.
for breakfast, like like, so it's like, oh, every time I drink, those annoying freaking parents, they
Yeah,
leave, but the
yeah,
parents are meant to like keep me safe. Now sometimes the parents are a little too strict, or they're a little too
right,
permissive, but there is
right,
that like attractiveness of like the pure ego, the inner child that gets to
right.
go out and play.
That illusion of freedom, man, is we kind of misconstrue the idea of like freedom and peace. um I like to ask people, like, how, if you were just in a room you could breathe in, nobody could hear you, nobody could see you, you're safe, you could say anything, you could say anything, no one's going to judge you, no one's going to hear you, you could do, what would you say? What would you say? Like, would you let go and project every single thought? Would you restrict yourself? Would you stay? Would you live within the realms of your programming? Would you experiment? Would you literally express yourself in a different way, knowing that nobody in the world could possibly come up with an alternate perception of you? That's kind of what alcohol is. It's putting you in this room with the illusion of freedom, thinking, dude, you
Mm,
could think, say, and do anything and nobody will judge you. Nobody's going to change anything.
yeah.
That's your consciousness dissipating, man. These illusions that the poison provides is also a driving force in action, man. That's why if we
It's
don't care, does it matter at all?
do you know about the concept of like the id, the ego, and the super ego, like the
Yeah.
Freudian,
Yeah.
right? So it's like, as I'm thinking about this, I'm like, actually what's happening here is you're killing your super ego,
Mm-hmm.
and then your id gets to run free, right,
Yeah.
and do what it wants, right? So like the id, this, just for people who don't know, like this like inner sense of self, like this, that we're born with, this selfishness, but it's also like your survival instincts, right? Like pleasure,
Yeah.
Do whatever you want. It's not in regards to other people. Your ego, you're kind of stuck in the middle between that and your super ego, which is like the voice of society,
Right. Right. Right.
right? The voice of, and it can be very oppressive, right? When you
Right.
put a lot of pressure on yourself to succeed and be seen in a certain way, it's like very strict and to follow these rules, right? And I think that's the appeal, for some of my clients that I work with. I think sometimes people have extra oppressive, like people who have a lot of shame, right?
Yep.
The super ego, one of its tools is shame.
Hmm.
And so, how attractive is that if I have this like parent who
Yeah.
is like authoritarian and abusive? Like I've seen this with some clients, and it comes out, and alcohol is just one way, right? Drugs,
Yeah.
cutting, all these different things. I could think of a few clients who had these just like super, just had so much shame and guilt and perfectionism.
Hmm.
And it's like, a bully. They had this bully in their
Yep.
mind that's constantly telling them, you got to do better, be better, look better,
Right.
work out. Especially with like some women that I've worked with, like be perfect, some of the ones who are maybe more susceptible to like eating disorders and stuff. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden they drink, and it's like, wow, they shut the fuck up,
Yep.
right? Like this is the only thing I found that shuts them up. And right, you could use that with anything, like any, pain, physical pain.
That's the
It's
key
like
stuff.
addiction is
That's
like the Swiss Army knife, where it's like I could use it for everything. It fixes this, it fixes that.
yeah.
And it does it right away. So then,
This is a huge, huge staple with all that stuff, man.
yeah,
I've never been happier than being able to sit patiently with myself. It's like, it's one thing to just go like, oh, this feels good, this tastes good, it must be good. No, it's not. The trick with all of this is that society and our environments, we confuse pleasure with happiness. We think, we feel, and we've been convinced that if we feel good or are receiving pleasure, either emotionally, physically, spiritually, we are happy. This is not true. It's just not true.
yeah.
Pleasure isn't happiness. I can receive pleasure all day long from many different stimuli and be miserable at my core.
Oh, and you will eventually, that it's
100%.
it's guaranteed, to chase a
Exactly.
life. And I always tell my clients and anyone who will listen to me, but there's like two types of pleasure, right? I call it a simple pleasure and a complex pleasure, right? And the
Yeah.
simple pleasure is those like little, eat a good meal, this, that. But
Yeah.
the complex pleasure is, working your butt off and getting a degree.
Yeah.
Right. It's a different kind of pleasure when that diploma hits your hand, something that you've worked for, something that
Right.
does not come immediately. And the pleasure you get, the simple pleasure you get from using drugs, I think in many ways mimics a complex pleasure. And I'm just thinking out loud because it feels so goddamn good. Right. You feel like
Right.
euphoria and bliss, versus eating a nice meal. It's not like I'm like, oh, I'm like, you're like, yeah, I
Yeah.
appreciate this, but like using a drug is like pure euphoria. But the problem is it's like you're paying for it. You're literally
100%.
paying for something.
You're sacrificing parts of
There's a
yourself for
finite amount of time that you get it, and that, but you
yeah.
can't take that away from someone. If you accomplish getting a degree, that's something that can't be taken away. That's something that you've done, that you've worked for. That's something that's
Right.
real and tangible
Right.
versus paying to get that feeling, which is much
Yeah.
easier. It's much more convenient,
Yeah. One of
and that's
one
why
of
it's
the
so addictive.
the trippy part, Eckhart Tolle taught me the dimension of now. Like everything is now. Like it doesn't matter your degree, it doesn't matter what you're working on, what you're not working on, what
Mhm.
happened, what's not happening. All of these things that have or will happen and what's happening is all happening now. So you could be working on your degree and doing all those things, but if you are absolutely miserable that entire time, then you suffer from something called destination happiness. This
Yeah,
is why
yeah,
millionaires continue chasing money. They continue chasing
that's true.
women,
That's a good point.
men, whatever. Happiness is in something. Happiness is at the bottom of the bottle. This is what's trippy is like a lot of people with ADHD, including myself, you can't have just one. And I ask people to go like, think about this. Dopamine is what's released not after, but before you do something. So just the thought of drinking alcohol, just the thought of having the degree, just the thought of having the body is enough to pump adrenaline, release dopamine, and put you into the state of, oh, dude, I'm ready. I'm so ready. I'm so excited. Like a friend coming over. And so people will go and flood themselves with dopamine and then continue chasing it and chasing it and chasing it, and then basically drain themselves out. And now they're in this miserable position.
It's a really
And
good
so
point.
they seek pleasure. So this is why I'm always talking about this. Two things that you mentioned, specifically in regards to shame, and this is why I created the Beyond Sober program, is because so many different programs and people are conditioned with toxic reinforcements, basically saying they want to shame you into being better by feeling weaker about yourself. Maybe if I hurt you long enough, you'll develop the skin to say no. Maybe if I punish you or publicly embarrass you in a room, or bring up your faults or this or that, or remind you of your trauma, or whatever it is that you're struggling with, maybe if I throw that in your face, that you will literally trigger and rewrite your DNA and become someone capable of saying no. Which is so trippy, because the reason we drink is because we already feel like that. The reason we drink is because of the guilt, because of the shame, because of the depression, because of the low mental health. And what do you think is going to happen? You're not a different person just because you're not drinking. You're not a different person because you didn't take the pill. You're not a different person because you're not in the relationship anymore. You are the same exact person minus the substance, which means if you continue doing the same things, thinking the same thoughts, and feeling the same feelings, you're going to get the same exact results. 100%. This is why I tell people to lift happy. I'm in the gym every single day, and on the wall it says it says strong, healthy, strong, happy. That phrase is backwards, man. It is happy, healthy, strong. Show up, do things, bring yourself joy, not just pleasure. Happiness is a state of being. It is not something you're rewarded. Happiness is something you allow yourself to feel. You don't have to do anything. It's not transactional. You don't do this and get your degree and then you deserve to be happy. You give yourself permission to step into the dimension of happiness. You don't have to turn in a timesheet. There's no Excel spreadsheet here. There's no boss. There's nothing that you have to check off all these things and step into the dimension of happiness. You find reasons why you're worth it, and you do that. That happiness becomes the driving force and the reflection of peace as you work towards a degree. What is the point of working towards something if you're miserable all the way? What's the point of personal growth if you hate every second and you cannot feel success in the moment? The only moment that will ever exist. This is why 30 days sober is no different than 4 days sober. Yet society and these toxic reinforcements have us thinking that we're going to be more sober, more happy, more powerful in 30 days or 100 days than we are at 4 days. Sober is sober. Happy is happy. It doesn't matter how you get there, but you must recognize that you are there. From that standpoint, you're no longer under the thumb of negativity and oppression. You might feel shameful and a little bit of guilt, but that's not forcing you to feel like you're going backwards. You're celebrating every single day from the now. That's the only way we create long-term sobriety, because sobriety doesn't guarantee happiness, but happiness does guarantee sobriety.
Yeah, man, well, you just spit profound shit left and right. Yeah, I'm like, all right. No, I mean, and I'm glad you brought that up, because, when we're talking about those complex pleasures, I mean, you're absolutely right, because even the complex pleasures will not bring happiness. Now, I think sometimes, in order first of all, a simple pleasure will absolutely not bring you happiness, right? That will bring you straight misery. Chasing complex pleasures, but in turning them into simple pleasures, is not going to help, right? But let's say, like, you get that degree, but then you stop, you get to this next level of the mountain. If you just keep looking to the next rung up there,
Yeah.
and you don't stop for a goddamn second and take a breath
Yeah.
and look at the view and look down and see where you came from and have gratitude and appreciate
Yeah.
and be able to be in the moment. Not only that, being able to, no matter where you are climbing up, that you're able
Yeah.
to find peace and contentment, like you said, in that moment, right? I think that is the key to happiness. And I wonder what
Yeah.
you think about this. And there's, I have some experience like personally with like chronic pain.
Mhm.
And and I work with other people, right, whether it's chronic pain or like just in financial, just constant financial stress, not knowing where your
Yeah.
next meal is, not having housing, right? It's kind of
Mhm.
hard in those moments when your very base needs are not being
Mhm.
met to find that more perpetual state of happiness because you're so consumed with that. What's your thought about that? Of Because I know that someone would say, like, it doesn't matter what your situation is, find that gratitude, and people do it. I mean, there's people in wheelchairs that are
Yeah.
paralyzed from the neck down that are like happier than other people. But like for me, I just
Yeah.
know that was like such a battle. Like, luckily I'm in a better place now, but it was like such a battle, even though I had all these other amazing things and blessings and blah blah. But it was just
Right.
sometimes
Right.
it's just like, God damn, no matter what I did. I don't know. What's your thought? Like, teach
Love
me.
that. That's a huge one, and I know exactly what that feels like, man. I mean, it's like I'm a liver failure survivor. Like, I have stage 4 cirrhosis, man. Like, most people don't survive what I went through. So even after that, losing my house, my car, my job, my money, all my friends, being a felon on top of that, man, having nothing and literally feeling like you hold no value, plus the just like insane physical pains, man. I was on 19 pills a day, had ascites, man. I looked 9 months pregnant. I was bright yellow. My insides turned black, brother. I
you,
died from the
yeah,
withdrawals, man.
yeah.
Like,
We always see that picture, right? I mean, that's,
yeah, that yellow, that jaundice, man.
yeah.
It took months for that to go away. And we look at chronic pain and we look at, the things that get our attention. There's a few different interesting things that I'd like to talk about in that regards. First off, there are things that get our attention, and then there are things that we give our attention to. So in regards to like a pain, whether it's emotional or physical or whatever, we go like, you could scrape your arm or you could have an injury, right? If the pain is so bad that it continues to get your attention, literally interrupts with everything else that you're giving your focus to, then it really truly needs your attention. Then we look at the concept of the programming in the mind and its capabilities. Are you sure you're in pain? Now, I'm not degrading anybody's pain or devaluing anything, but the truth is we're programmed to go, there's an injury, it needs all of my attention. Anything you give your attention to amplifies. This is why in business, we don't focus on the problems. We focus on what's working and we triple down on the things that are making progress.
Mhm.
The things that are working, we do 3 times the amount of that and the problems fix themselves. So when it comes to injuries and physical pains and whatnot, it's never, ever about ignoring the pain, but it is about immersing yourself in things that bring you joy and pleasure.
Yeah.
Happiness will always outweigh pain and anguish, no matter what. It just neurologically, chemically, it'll flood your system. I also bring this to the forefront from not just a spiritual standpoint, but from a healing standpoint. Why do you think I'm still alive, man? Like, dead serious. This is 5 years after death. How am I still here? Did we quantum jump? Did I split into the next reality? This is the next closest one. Is this a glitch in the matrix? Or have I been able to heal my body to such a standpoint that doctors are baffled by my condition now? I'm not dying anymore. I'm not special. I'm not an anomaly. Well, technically, I'm an anomaly, but I'm equally as human as anybody else. How am I still here when 99% of people in my condition don't make it past the first year? If your thoughts can bring you anxiety, then your thoughts can bring you sobriety. Sobriety doesn't mean no alcohol, no drugs, no substances. Sobriety from toxic thoughts. Your thoughts can make you sick. Your thoughts can keep you ill. your thoughts can amplify the pain. It's never about ignoring what needs your attention. The analogy or the metaphor is, dude, if you're in the middle of the ocean, are you seriously thinking about the cut on your foot? No, dude, you're in the middle, you're immersed 100%. You can't not think about what you're in. You're in the water, you're in the ocean. This is why when we immerse ourselves 100% as deeply as possible in things that bring us pleasure and joy and peace and help us reflect on how amazing it is to actually be alive, we end up healing ourselves. We end up disconnecting from the pain. We end up sending those white blood cells to that area. We end up valuing the condition opposed to punishing ourselves for being in pain. That's why anger is a form of punishment. You being upset, me being upset on behalf of somebody else because of what they did is punishing myself for their mistake. So me not moving forward is a way of punishing myself because I've been injured. This is why the greatest thing that I've seen recently is my homegirl hobbling into the gym on crutches. She could have stayed home, man. She has 1,000 reasons. Her knee exploded and this, that, and the other. She's been struggling, but she developed the discipline, the love, the technique, and the self-worth to show up even when she's in pain. That's why she's healing faster. The pain's not gone, but her attention is on what brings her joy, what feels good.
Yeah. Well, that's a really good point. And, we kind of got off on I kind of threw us off on a chronic pain kind of thing, but
Dude,
yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. And it's kind of like, that's all you can do, right? Is focusing. And kind of what got me through that time, right, is like making TikTok, like doing all these things to, find joy in the things I could do and not what I couldn't do.
yeah.
But, you did also before mention, you started to lead us into your Beyond Sober program. And this is why main reason I brought you on is because when I watch your content, you say a lot of things that go against the traditional thought and views. And you started to talk about that a little bit. And I'm guessing you were alluding to some of that, right? Of the
Yeah.
classic abstinence-based sobriety model, which comes
Yeah.
from my backyard here in Minnesota. So
Yeah.
before we go into that a little bit, I'm curious as to, because my guess is that you've had some experience with that, right? With like, an abstinence-based treatment maybe. So I'm curious if you've been to treatment. Have you gone to AA or other 12-step meetings? Like what brought you to have a different view opposed to like what's traditional?
That's a great question, man. I love that. After, in order for me to qualify for a liver transplant, keep in mind, I wasn't on the waiting list because I wasn't supposed to make it past 7 days. I was dying, right? I wasn't going to live. So once I survived the 250 hours of torture, they're like, okay, if your liver, if you drink or whatever, if your liver decides to start giving out, even worse than what it is, we can't even consider you for a transplant unless you go to AA. So this is recommended. You must be sober for 6 months because we're not going to give a new liver to someone who's still an alcoholic. So I went to AA, which is super, super amazing. I went to AA for 30 days. The trippiest part about that is every single week, there'd be a new memorial. Every week, they were basically praying for someone that was in that specific AA that died, which means they drank themselves to death.
Yep.
So that's 4 people in 30 days that are in AA, which is the solution, that found absolutely nothing, that were not as addicted as I was because they're still alive, and they're dead now. Whether they drank themselves in a hotel bathroom, whether some dude like hung himself. So I'm sitting here like completely desperate and actively attempting to improve my life, sitting in a room full of people. And I'm not devaluing. Like I've been these people. I know exactly what the mindset is. I know what it's like to feel like the victim. I know what it's like to feel like the world's against you. I know what it's like to want to escape. And the trip is I'm sitting here and I'm realizing that in no way whatsoever do I want to relate to anybody in this room. At my core, which is the person beneath the alcohol, I didn't relate to any of these people in any way whatsoever, because all of these people are focusing on their pain. They're amplifying their turmoil. They're constantly talking about their trauma. Most of the people in AA were drinking. They were drunk. I'd be standing outside and people would be leaving their cars smelling like vodka, people offering me alcohol, and I just survived liver failure. There's no disregard for me or no regard for me. They're actively offering a liver failure survivor more of the poison that killed him. If that's what is to be expected in a program like that, that speaks volumes for the program. My mother is in it. Say it again.
So was that like the bulk of your experience? Like you were in like AA for 30 days or something like that, and then
Yeah.
didn't look back after that?
Well, see, once that fourth person died, and I had the opportunity to go to the gym, I was like, I'm gonna collect my 30-day chip, and I'll see you guys later. And
And that was,
then I
and
just
you
started
didn't
going
look
to the
back
gym.
after that.
Here's the depth behind my focus on physical, emotional, and spiritual health was I'm looking to become a better version of myself. I'm not looking to cure my addiction or anything like that. I'm an ex-alcoholic, which is a term that people just cannot fathom that that's even possible. An ex-alcoholic. So getting into the gym, I was basically saying, I'd rather die struggling to become someone better than the person that needs AA than go die in AA. That was my perspective. I don't want to be one of these people that is addicted to AA and constantly trauma bonding and emotionally entangling with the person that has the most amount of pain in the room. None of those are healing thoughts. None of that felt right. It didn't make sense. And then there was the shame. And then there's stepping in. You have to become someone different. You have to adopt a religion, even though they talk about you don't have to be religious. It's this and that. It's your own thing. I get it, but the point is that's also not who I am, right? So looking at all these things, I go, there's got to be another way for me to take care of myself. This can't be the only option. If this is it, this explains why my mother is still an alcoholic, why my little sister is still an alcoholic. Her liver failed too. My little sister, right?
Family.
So, yeah. So that was my introduction to the answer. If the answer is death, then I'm going to go die trying. I'm going to take care of myself and move forward in my own way. And that's when I realized that all of the way that I was thinking was directly contributing to a life I didn't want to live anymore. I had to start developing new thoughts so I can start processing new feelings and have the strength to do new things. That's how I've been in the gym. Granted, I'm only in the gym for 45 minutes to maybe an hour and a half, but that's where I find peace. Not find peace, that's where I practice peace. I'm a happy person now. I'm a healed human. I'm a peaceful being. And I bring that energy into the gym, which is why I tell people to lift happy, man. If you're going to show up to the gym, if you're going to show up to an occasion, you're going to show up somewhere angry and bitter, then you're not going to get the results that you're searching for. You're not positioning yourself to be able to receive the happiness and the joy and the peace because you're in a constant state of misery and punishing yourself. We call this a dimension of reception. What's the point of working so hard if you're miserable when you get that degree?
I mean, it sounds
That
like,
feeling is short-lived.
yeah, it sounds like you took really like this kind of individualistic approach of mindfulness and I mean, it really seems like everything for you and like is coming down to mindfulness, but also like physical health, because when I watch your content, I mean, you in the gym doing like just ninja shit, like, or like,
Yeah.
you have a program for that, like ninja workout. But yeah, you got your mask and shit. I
They
mean,
call me ninja.com.
I was gonna ask you too, like, like in the gym, and it's sometimes funny in the background, you'll see someone walk by and like because for
But
those of you
yeah,
listening who haven't seen his content, go watch it. But a lot of it is, you like kind of showing, hey, this is my life. I'm in the gym, and you're doing like, ninja gymnastic type stuff, like,
yeah,
like
yeah.
degree difficulty level 9 stuff. Like you're talking about how you were like it's like kind of a mix of break dancing and
Yeah,
Shaolin. But
exactly.
yeah, but it seems like, that is a really huge part for you, is the physical health and healing your body and treating your body like a temple, but also so
Yeah.
body and then the mind is this mindfulness. um and,
Mhm.
and and that was maybe your rejection of that AA experience that you had.
Yeah. AA totally lived up to my expectations. Going in there, my mother had been to AA. I've heard
Yeah.
about AA. I've read the results, and it was exactly what I thought it was going to be. And this was a good one. So I'm not hating on AA because I'm so happy that it exists. It's like 86, 87 years old.
So why
Um,
why are you, based on like what you just said, like what is good about AA? Because I mean, you just, tore it
AA
up a little
is
bit,
designed.
maybe deservingly, but what do you think, what purpose does it serve then? I mean, it really, for someone like you, right, who would probably be a poster child for AA, scraggling out of the
Yeah,
hospital with his
yeah,
liver in an external bag because it can't fit
yeah,
in his
right.
body,
I kind of,
hobbling in.
what is that Ninja Turtle guy? Like
Yeah,
he's the
yeah,
villain. He's got the, yeah, like that. Yeah, instead of the brains, it's just a
yeah.
liver with a face operating this machine. Yeah, man. You would think that. You would really think that. I love that AA. And keep in mind, I call it always alcoholic. It's not Alcoholics Anonymous. It's always alcoholic, and I'll get into that. It's a major staple because Beyond Sober is the complete opposite. But the truth with this is AA is designed for a specific type of person struggling in a specific type of way. There are people that don't mind being shamed into success. That's fine. Sometimes the emotional weight, and the discontent and the discomfort of rejection, of having the answer beaten into you, being reminded of what you don't want. For certain people, AA is a perfect solution, man. And some people don't know how to step outside their comfort zone, and they want to sit in a room full of people that they, regardless of how they think, know that they are similar. That's that feeling of connection. And other people just want to have a routine. They want to be able to show up. They want to know that that's there. They need the control, the security. And AA is great, man. It's just, that's why there's millions of people suffering in silence, because it's left out an entire other half of the human race that are equally struggling and look at AA and go, I know down to my core that I'm going to want to drink more when I leave that room, which is a very, very common phrase I hear all the time. AA makes me want to drink. AA makes me depressed. I don't want to be in that room. I don't want to relate to these people. I don't want to do those things. I don't want to be someone new. I want to be someone better. That's the trip with AA and other programs, is you are the same person when you leave that room. When you close the door, when you exit and you get in your car, you are no different. All you did was practice not drinking for an hour or two or whatever.
Mhm.
It's not a permanent solution. It is an excuse. It's a coping mechanism. It is equally as addictive as the poison. So from that standpoint, this is why Beyond Sober is so powerful. Is the point is not to be the same person. The point is I don't ever want to see you again unless you're smiling from your success. I don't want you to be dependent on the program. I don't want you to feel like you have to join the community of thousands of people that are working together. I don't want you to feel like you have to rely on anything other than yourself, because it all comes down to programming. If you are literally the same person without alcohol and you don't have a coping mechanism, then you are the same person that will have a problem with alcohol. Another way of saying it is you're not cured. You have the same problem. You're just practicing not solving it with the poison. That's an issue, man. That is an issue. I'm not the same person as I was before I died. in no way whatsoever. I don't think the same. I don't feel the same. I don't act the same. I don't even look the same. Different goals, dreams, aspirations, ideas, concepts. I'm an international best-selling author, dude. Like, you look at all these things, that's because physically, emotionally, spiritually, I am not the same person. And that's the beautiful part about Beyond Sober, is we open with radical acceptance, which is something I wanted to mention when you were talking about chronic pain. How you feel about the pain doesn't change the pain. How you feel about your problem doesn't fix the problem. This is why when we focus on who you are and not the problem, you start to rewrite your coding and then find the strength and develop the skills to process your day-to-day life into being a version of yourself that you love. Happy, healthy people don't want to escape their mind. They want to express it in a healthy way. That's the whole point of Beyond Sober. It's not, sobriety has nothing to do with not drinking. It has everything to do with what you're doing between drinks. When we focus on developing a healthy relationship with alcohol instead of a narcissistic relationship with alcohol, we're in that place of control. That's why AA will work for a certain type of person, when most humans at their core that struggle with the same problem simply want to become someone better than the addict.
So you're thinking
Better
that
than
like
the
your thought
alcoholic.
is that AA focuses too much on the problem and not enough on the solution.
100%. Absolutely. I'll say this, they don't focus at all on the solution. If they did, it would, there's no solution there. They focus on the problem and hope that if you give enough of your attention to the problem, the reflection of your actions will be like, see, look, they're fixed. But that's another major, major issue, and why I have so many haters on TikTok. They think that once you're an alcoholic, you're always an alcoholic. That's not true. That is not true whatsoever. I'm not an alcoholic. The term ex-alcoholic exists.
But what like, so are you personally abstinent? Like you don't drink
Yeah,
at
if
all?
I don't drink at all. It's a poison. They killed me
So,
once. It'd be like hanging out with my murderer.
so wouldn't you say though, like what, like, and especially with someone with a liver failure, like I've met people who've had liver failure and then they relapse and they're like 3 days later they're in the hospital. Like even though they look super healthy and they've been off it for a couple of years, like your liver never is the same. So like,
Ever.
would you agree that if you drank alcohol again, you would be an alcoholic?
If from this standpoint, no.
Yeah, like if you started drinking, like do you, like, and I know this is like kind of taboo, but do you think with everything you know, with your mindset, with all this
Yeah.
development, if I put a gun to your head and said, I want you to start drinking again, but do it in a controlled way, what do you think would happen? I know you don't
I
maybe.
would
What's that?
aside, aside from the fear of being shot in the face,
Mhm.
I would drink in a healthy way, because I'm a happy, healthy person that
So
would
you
consume
think you could
alcohol.
go back? You think you could go back and drink in a controlled manner?
100%. It wouldn't be, here's the trip, it wouldn't be going backwards. It would be my first sip of alcohol.
So why
It would be the
why don't you do it? You just don't like it?
it would kill me. I would die. In no way whatsoever are there any emotional, physical, or spiritual benefits to this substance.
So, but if you're
It's a
not
parasite.
alcoholic anymore, why would you die? Is it just because your liver
I
came in
have
with
stage
one or?
4 cirrhosis. As you just mentioned, my
Okay.
liver, I have an inflamed spleen, yeah, or enlarged spleen. It's about 12 centimeters larger than normal. My liver was the size of a football. I did 30 years of damage in 15 years. My liver is as close to 100% as possible. But if I put the poison in this thing, it will seize up and I will die.
So, like, let's say
That's,
if I gave you another liver, and
yeah,
you probably like wouldn't choose to do it just because why? But again, gun to
yeah,
your head, like you think that you could go back to controlled drinking.
100%.
It's
Absolutely.
interesting.
There's no, people ask me that not too often, but often enough for me to go like, I'm not afraid of alcohol, dude. I've had alcohol in my mouth. I hold alcohol. There's alcohol in the refrigerator downstairs. I'm not afraid of it. It doesn't control me because I understand it. It only has the power that I give it. Most people don't drink because of their addiction. We got to remember this. An alcoholic is someone that is physically and emotionally addicted and or dependent on the substance, which most people call themselves an alcoholic, and they're not. This is society living up to this. If someone hasn't broken their physical addiction, it means they haven't healed themselves in such a way. They haven't practiced this. They're the same exact person, and they decide to drink. They have no concept of themselves. They haven't practiced control, and they're still physically addicted to it. They will definitely go back down the rabbit hole. So many people want to jump in and go like, so you're telling alcoholics to just go drink again? No. People who do have a high tolerance can practice consuming less alcohol, which is why I created the single shot method, and lower their tolerance so they have a healthy relationship. So many people believe that just because they have a problem with the way they drink alcohol, that they are an alcoholic. That's not true, man. The point that I'm getting at is that if you've broken a physical addiction, it means you don't have that entanglement. That code isn't written anymore. You've healed that portion of your mind and your body, and you decide to consume that. I'm not going to recommend drugs or anything, but if you decide to consume a poison casually from a place of control, you can drink casually. Nobody
Why
wants
do you think
you
so many
to believe that or
people,
think
regardless of, I mean, because most people go to AA, it's not, I mean, it used to be more common, like you get a DUI and they're like, you got to go to, judge says you got to go to 60
yeah,
days of AA or
yeah,
something. But I mean, most of the people who go to AA, like even if people have a positive view of AA, nobody wants to go, right?
yeah,
Like you don't, like no one wants to be an alcoholic. No one wants to admit they're an alcoholic. No one would dreams of going to AA one day when they're a little kid growing up. But
yeah,
usually people wind up there because they try every goddamn thing they can. And that's usually what I tell
right,
people is like, don't do AA until you've literally tried everything else to control, to manage, do abstinence on your own and everything in between. But usually people don't go to
yeah,
AA. So then why do, if that's the case, why do people have such a hard time doing it? Because most people in AA,
yeah.
they don't want you there. Like if you're, if you're like,
Yeah,
look, I don't know, they're like, look, come back when you, when you want to be here, come back, and for better or
yeah.
worse, they say that, but they're not trying to like, like a teenager comes in and says, I just got caught by my mom, like people in AA wouldn't be like, join us, drink the Kool-Aid. They'd be like,
Yeah.
well, just
They're
hang
like,
out
get out
here
of
for a
here. You're a
while,
problem.
learn something, and we'll probably see you again in 10 years. But,
Yeah.
so, like, I don't think AA would really be on board, but I think that's where a lot of that comes from, though, that abstinence based of, um, because there's that try everything you can, but people have such a hard time doing that. And they
Yeah.
try just about goddamn everything, right? Like programs, they try alternative, they go to treatment even that maybe does promote it, but they say, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do my own way. They go to the best psychiatrists, the best therapists. They come to me, right? But, and they still just can't do it. And sometimes they die before they make it to that abstinence based.
Yeah.
So I was like,
Yeah.
curious, like what your thought is on that, because like, in some ways you like, you seem like a unique specimen, like what you were able to
Yeah.
do, most people cannot do. But what I do think is interesting that you have this perspective that you're bringing into your program. And definitely before we go, I want to hear like all about the ins and outs of your program, and what it
Yeah.
is and all that. But just from what you're talking about, like kind of you're like a traditional person like me who works in addiction, who has an abstinence
Yeah.
background, we would look at you and say you're an anomaly, you're an exception to the rule.
I'm written about in medical journals, that's for sure, man. I am. They used to call me Wolverine. So, and my sister kind of like degraded my strength. She's like, "Oh, you didn't know we healed real fast?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? I don't think
I'm
you
in
would. I
medical journals.
died.
What do you
Okay, like it hurt a lot. Okay, So I love that you bring that up, man. So check this out. This is why I created the single shot method. Most people don't even think of it like this,
Yeah, what is
because they
that?
go like, single shot method. A lot of people misconstrue it and go like, oh, I'm just supposed to have a shot a day. Okay, that makes sense. That's not it. Single shot method applies to anybody, and it's for regulating your intake from a place of intent. There's a book called The Talent Code. Okay, this is how I learned about neurological pathways and where talent is born from. That's how I learned that I'm a master coach in these specific areas. The trip with this is you get good at anything you practice. This is a major, major, major staple in Beyond Sober. So practice is done with intent. Habits, those kind of like subconsciously we pick those things up. But when you are practicing something, whether it's playing basketball, doing a backflip, gym stuff, walking, you have intent behind that. Your intent is to understand it and be able to activate those pathways from a place of control. I know that if I do this, like that, like this, I'll get this result. Oh, didn't work that time. Let's try it again, try it again, try it again. What most people don't try is to practice drinking less. If you get good at anything you practice, don't you think it's possible to get good at drinking less? So single shot method is, you can go to singleshotmethod.com, totally free stuff. It is.
Is this your website?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So single shot method, you could Google it too, singleshotmethod.com. This is how I've been able to get people that drank more than me. They were doing like 45 shots a day, like a gallon of liquor a day, down to 2 beers a month casually. They have their life back because of this specific method. It is, let's just say this. Let's just say you, Evan, you drink 10 beers a day. You have 10 drinks a day, right? You're out of control, brother. Now we're going to practice drinking 9.
It's not a far stretch.
So the thing is that you may have a high tolerance and all this stuff, and that's fine. And it's a major staple in your life. The trick with this is if you actively practice drinking 9, your body and your mind are going to write new codes towards this is what we drink. You don't have to, something doesn't have to be true for you to believe it. This is why so many people go, I can't stop drinking. That's not true, but you believe it. You're not the anomaly. You are not the only person on the planet, right? So when you practice these things, you start developing the belief that you are the best at drinking less. Dude, I'm so good at drinking less. Dude, I'm the best at drinking less. You're actually writing new emotional codes in association with your practice. So if you have 10 drinks, now you are celebrating the fact from a place of love that you are so good at drinking 9, man. So instead of going, oh, I'm drinking less alcohol, you're excited that you could drink 9. That technically kind of becomes your cap. And you could pour a single shot as you pour 1 shot out of the bottle. If you drink a whole bottle or you have 15 shots, you pour 1 out, give 1 to a friend, whatever. Your goal is to drink that bottle, whatever your standard intake is, -1. That's what you're going to do for 2, 3, 4 days, a week, a month. Who cares? You're going to get good at that. Then you're going to forget that you're practicing because your cap now is 9. Then when you get good at drinking 9, you're going to start drinking 8. You're going to get really good at drinking 8. So not only your mind, not only are you in a place of controlled consumption, but you're excited about your progress, man. This is positive reinforcement. You're now your biggest cheerleader and you're celebrating the fact that you're making progress. This is slowly turning you into someone that's struggling forward, that doesn't feel like they're out of control. You could still be sad, you could still be upset and depressed and drink for this and drink out of habit and whatnot, but you are actively in a regimen that's helping you consume alcohol in a healthier way. That is why when we talk about alcohol in a relationship, I always ask people through Beyond Sober here on TikTok too, is I go, are you developing a healthier relationship with alcohol? It's not like, have you quit? Have you been abstinent for 30 days? Mm-hmm. That's not the point. Are you developing a healthier relationship with alcohol? Are you drinking less with intent? Are you operating from a healthier standpoint instead of just drinking until you can't remember? The answer 99% of the time is yes. I'm still drinking, but I'm not drinking 12 beers a night. I'm only having 3. Holy crap. You've cut your intake in more than half. And you're drinking at low risk, which means low risk of not causing physical damage, not becoming an alcoholic, not becoming emotionally dependent. You are still doing something that you're good at because you've practiced your whole life. You just have more control. You have more excitement. Now you're casually drinking. You may not be at this point because of your success. You're not drinking to get drunk. You're drinking to drink,
So it's
but not
interesting.
because you're an addict.
Yeah, kind of going back to what we were talking about, let's say about the like the toxic relationship metaphor, what a lot of people have trouble with, right? Like when you're like addicted to someone, you're in an abusive relationship, that would in some ways be like saying, look, you're going to go back to that ex who's abusive. However,
Yeah.
you're going to set boundaries with them and you're going to hold those boundaries, and you're going to be able to enjoy that relationship and maybe change how they interact with you, right? And so, but a lot of
100%.
people, right, they have understandably a difficult time because they fall back into that cycle, and they, of that of punishment and reinforcement, and
Yeah.
they can't break it. So, so I think that's where a lot of the abstinence stuff comes from, because like what you're like, I agree with what you're saying. I just think that it, it's really fucking hard to do. You know what I mean? Like it's
Everything
really,
is
really
hard.
hard. And like, it takes a lot of probably time, effort, resources. Not that we're not pouring that into other things, but
Yeah.
like, I mean, that is like a serious discipline. I mean, because like you could be a disciplined person, but then usually people who let's say have like the genetic predisposition, or they just fall
Yeah.
into it for whatever reason, right? The alcohol kills your will, it kills your ability to discipline it,
Right.
right? And that's
Right.
inherently the problem. So then, especially that person who's like just coming out of detox or something like that, right? To be
Yeah.
like, all right, you're gonna master, you're gonna conquer the demon. They're like, like
Yeah.
that, that's where I think that abstinence mindset comes from, because so many people, once they take the drink, it propels them back into the mindset. Like, and even people who, and I think that's where the abstinence also came from, and like AA came from, is because it's like, hey, there's this pattern of people, people have been getting sober for a long time, but people who, an AA came out of a necessity for the people who are
Right.
like hopeless, right?
Right.
Like I couldn't go into AA with like an addiction at 22 years old. They would tell me to get the fuck out and come back when you've lost it all, right? I mean, it was
Yeah.
really for those people, because a lot of them found that like they could be sober for 2 years, their life could be great, and then all
Mhm.
of a sudden they just like, they think of a trivial reason. This is like in the AA
Right.
literature, they'll think, and I see this all the time with people, and it's not hard to imagine, because it'd be like, um, you know what, I was really overweight, I was unhealthy, and I started
Yeah.
dieting and exercising. I don't touch these foods because they were really addictive. Then you say, like, after a while, you're like, look at me, I'm really healthy, and then you
Yeah.
start to eat those unhealthy foods, you start being lazy, and then you fall, you're like, oh
Right.
shit, I've fallen back into it. And the same thing happens with those, especially if they're hardcore alcoholics. They come up with a
Yeah.
trivial reason to drink
100%.
again, and the second it like hits their lips, like, right, they get that shot, and then they're
Yeah.
like, and then it throws them right back in, and then they, and it's so hard to rip someone out of that cycle, and a lot of
Right.
people keep doing that dance, and then they like die, and that's kind of where like the AA
Exactly.
came in to
Exactly.
fill the niche.
AA will is one of those things that I look at that as kind of like a brute force technique. Bro, no, not happening. You can't do it. You're
Yeah,
broken. That's another thing. You are broken forever. You're
yeah,
forever broken. Got it. Certain people could handle that stuff. That's what AA is for. If you enjoy that brute force technique, absolutely. As you were talking about habits, this is bringing up a perfect intro to Beyond Sober, because we're all taught that there's 12 specific steps and you must stick to these steps, or you're going to go back down the rabbit hole and start the cycle all over again. That's not true. There's only 6 areas of your life, technically only 5 areas of your life that you've got to give your attention to, and we group them in week by week, or module by module. So we start with radical acceptance. Radical acceptance, it doesn't matter how you feel about your drinking. It doesn't matter how you feel about your life. It is what it is. And being able to recognize these very specific elements of your life that you've got to accept, and disconnecting from the things that you've been taught to accept that don't serve you, then you're in this place of just going, okay, I accept that I'm here. I recognize that I don't enjoy the way I drink. I recognize that I have an issue. I recognize that that's a thing. We start practicing what's called the art of acceptance. And this is why it's number one. We start with acceptance. And that way it kind of removes the emotional weight behind our actions. And we've got homework with that too. A series of like 20 questions that you've probably never been asked before. And so that week, once you go through that week, then you start to realize all of the patterns and all of the thoughts and all of the people and all of the things that you believed needed your acceptance. And that challenges your boundaries. And that puts you in a position to not only think differently, but to start acting with intent, with purpose. I don't have to accept that just because Evan said that. That's just Evan the counselor. Who is this guy? I don't respect him. Or I love Evan. Everything he says is meant to make me move forward, dude. Okay, all right. I accept that. He's right. Although my feelings are hurt, I accept that that's truth. We start practicing these things. And then listen to the key word, practice. We start practicing the art of acceptance in our everyday life. Then we're moving on to habits, because life is habitual. The way I'm moving my hands, the way I'm speaking these words, the gaps between the words, how my eyebrows just raised, how I just laughed. Am I doing this with intent? Am I sitting here going, okay, Khodi, laugh right here, do that? Yeah. No, it's all habitual. Life is habitual. And then we start looking at how we operate as a human from that place of habit. Everything is a habit, including our thoughts. 90% of the thoughts we have today are from yesterday. So we can pretty much predict what our day is going to look like tomorrow. So we focus so much on those habits and go, dang, now we're getting very clear in week 2 about the habits that don't serve us. From a place of acceptance, accepting the fact that you did not create that habit of alcohol consumption, of substance consumption on purpose. You didn't do that, but you're also not beating yourself up for having that, because we are all collections of things that have happened to us, which is what I opened with. Dude, everything in our entire life had to unfold perfectly, exactly the way it did for us to be here. Our habits have led us to this conversation. That's beautiful. Now we're operating with intent and from a place of gratitude and respect. Then we move on to healthy habits, man. Drinking water is one of the healthiest things you could ever do. Yet we are all conditioned to serve our thirst with alcohol, with juice, with all these other things. So developing new healthy habits, which is only step 3, is going to put you in a place of action. Now that we understand what a healthy habit actually is, not the definition, but things that actually move you forward, things that are the bare necessities of life that we're practicing doing now, we're not beating ourselves up for it being difficult. We're excited that there's a level of difficulty to this, because we're developing new things that help us feel better and think less about the escape.
Yeah.
This is where AA comes in. So many people go like, let's talk about your trauma. Let's go to a psychiatrist. Let's go to psychologist or whatever, therapy. Let's talk about your trauma and figure out the why. No one cares about the why. You don't even care. Trying to figure out why we do things doesn't change anything. But when we can accept the fact that we do things, now we're in a place of control and just recognizing the behavior, which is module 4 called Back to the Future. Back to the Future is looking at that trauma, looking at those things, the reasons you choose to drink, those emotions that keep popping up, looking at them from a different perspective and accepting them and encouraging them and recognizing them for what they are. Those aren't reasons to drink. Those are reasons to grow. As we internalize from a new perspective in week 4, we're no longer finding an escape with the poison. Not only do we feel better, we think better, we're doing better, and we're living better. And now we're almost excited to look at the past and rewrite that story. Then we move on to tripling down on what you love. This is called 10x your success. 10x your success, man. If you've moved through weeks 1 through 4 and you're 10xing your success, that means you have a new regimen. You're drinking water. You're making yourself breakfast. You're going outside. Maybe you're meditating. Maybe you're having conversations with these people. Maybe you're just sitting in peace. The point is that anything that we do in week 5 is designed to write a code that is derivative of who you really want to be. This is what successful entrepreneurs do. This is what people that are building businesses, highly motivated, Gary Vee type people, these are the types of things that they do because they are practicing these healthy techniques and are excited about where they're going. And their whole life is derivative around this progress and excitement for life. And then the last week, which most people don't even need, is life beyond sobriety. So what a happy, healthy life looks like, a life that you love to wake up to. You're excited to open your eyes. You're excited to go to sleep early. You're excited for your bedtime. You're excited for this water. You love going to the gym. You love doing these things, planning your entire future, man. And really what it is week 6 is taking weeks 1 through 5 and developing an entire system that makes you your biggest fan and has what's called centrifugal reinforcement. You put in 20% energy into these specific areas and you get 80% positive results back. And it just keeps going, keeps going, keeps going. Now you are not an alcoholic. Now you are not someone who, you may struggle with some things. We all do. But the point is you're not the same person. You're not someone that's reliant or dependent or seeking an escape. You are someone who is powerful, expansive, curious, loving, appreciative, respectful, honoring, all of these traits that only develop over time and from a place of love and practice. If you get good at anything you practice, it makes sense that if you practice being the version of you that you actually love, eventually it's going to get pretty easy to stay alive and be alive and feel alive. That's why it's not about getting sober. It's about getting through your sobriety to where you forgot you ever had a problem.
And that's also, so people do like 5 modules, right? Like over like 5 weeks. Do they do this on their own? Are there coaches? Are you the main
Yeah.
coach? Like how do people connect? Is there a group people do? Like what does that look like?
Yeah. So on the main site, we have 8 coaches. I think we have 2 coaches on the way. Each coach has their own individual platform and they have their own individual operating procedures. So if someone is looking for a one-on-one coach or wants a smaller group coach, you can pick somebody that you resonate with, including myself. So I'll work with anybody 2 months and beyond, just depending on how important it is or how much of a staple they want me to be. The program itself is online. You can do it from your phone, from your tablet, from your computer. But one of the most, if not the most powerful element of the Beyond Sober community is the community of the program is the community.
Yep.
Instead of relying on a coach, instead of calling up a sponsor, waiting for someone to be available, the community connects on Marco Polo, which is like FaceTime basically, where you could just record, messages.
Oh yeah.
Thousands of people acting as each other's sponsor, each other's coach. Mm-hmm. The truth is when you look at the conversation that you and I are having, it goes super deep. There's lots of experience, lots of depth to it. That's a greater distance than from somebody else who just achieved the result that you're looking for. It's easier to connect with the person next to you that has the answer, that just figured it out. So going into the community, which takes care of each other, right? The happy, healthy, thriving community, you can get that support 24/7. You could jump in and leave a message and then somebody will jump in and be like, hey, I did that the other day, or this is how I answered that question, or this is the recipe that I'm working on, or this is what I did in the gym. And so instead of toxic reinforcement, you showing up feeling, horrible about yourself and us making you feel even worse, everybody in the community is going, you're killing it. You're rocking it. We're so proud of you, man. Keep pushing, keep doing, grab your water, dude, wait until you get into module 2, wait until you do this. So the entire community is practicing all of the elements that we talk about in the program. And that's an extension of the program. It's like a bonus level. You unlock that after week 1. So once you start getting these results, you are then introed into a community of people that are going, dude, what's up, man? We're so stoked to see you. Congratulations. And we pull each other through the program. It's centrifugal power, man. It is so beautiful.
How many people are in your
So
community? Sorry.
we have thousands online, and then we have the main community. So I believe like overall, we probably have between 2 and 6, last time I checked, there was like 250 people active, but then 600 people in the community itself. So some people are just spectators. Some people just show up and they're like, I'm just kind of, anxious. I don't really want to show my face, but I do want to be a part of the community. So the active members grow every single day. And then we have the Facebook group that's private. That's for everybody that, wants to share their success or has questions, specific topics, wants to connect with the community. We also have Discord. We're a little less over there. But Marco Polo has been a major game changer for the community because it's in your pocket 24/7.
When did you start it, this program? Like what?
Beyond Sober, the whole reason Beyond Sober exists is because I went viral on TikTok. Last year, probably February. So February of 2021 I went viral. I had a video that hit 4.4 million views. And it was me basically telling people, if you're not making a face when you drink alcohol, you're practicing alcoholic behavior, which means your chances of becoming an alcoholic are much greater. That kind of shook the TikTok community. And from there, my TikTok was almost shut down with how many messages I got. How do I quit? My father just died because of this. I have cirrhosis. I can't quit. What do I do? All this stuff. And so I asked the community, would you guys like for me to put the answer in one location? And thousands of people said, yes, teach me how. Because the truth is everyone wants to work with me personally. And there's only one of me to go around. So might as well duplicate myself and answer all of these questions. That became the backbone of Beyond Sober. And so we just relaunched May 4th. May the 4th be with you. And it's now, instead of just the Beyond Sober program, it's called Beyond Sober 2.0.
That's awesome. Hey, hold on one sec. Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah, because I had someone coming by. They're not coming for another hour, so that's good. Yeah, because like this is just good shit, man. So you wrote a book. Okay, so like between February and now, you started a program, you built a community, you wrote a book. Like, when did the book come about? And you said it was like a bestseller. How did that? Are you self-published? Did you find a publisher?
Yeah.
How did that go?
I personally, the book isn't my own. I contributed to a book. It's called You Can Overcome Anything Despite the Barriers in Life. And I'm in volume 1. And it's 16 of us entrepreneurs. I have numerous programs. My main program is called Mantis, which is 12-week programs, business development for entrepreneurs. MantisProgram.com or the Mantis Program. And that's what landed me in the community of authors. And it's basically your story from a struggle to success. So it's my liver failure story all the way to having a successful operating business as a felon.
Is this your primary business, or do you do this full time, or do you have something outside of this?
Beyond Sober it takes up a majority of my time, but it's not because I'm in the program itself. It's because I'm meeting new people, I'm introing new people, I'm answering hundreds of questions. But my main company is my name, Khodi LLC. And what I do is I build master platforms for coaches. So basically what I do is I duplicate the framework of one of the most powerful sobriety solutions out there, and then drop it into other coaches. So a lot of therapists that want to duplicate themselves. I'm currently working with numerous coaches that want to duplicate themselves and build a platform for their specific niche. So I'm a professional graphic designer, photographer, video editor, sales, marketing, advertising, copy, all of that stuff is what I do outside of Beyond Sober. But then Beyond Sober, man, that's where a majority of my attention goes, because there's so many people that are actively looking towards transforming themselves. they're tired of being or
Yeah.
feeling or identifying as an addict or an alcoholic. So that's where my heart's at. But yeah, so
Super cool.
I was able to do, I've done a lot since
Yeah,
since 2017.
it's incredible, man. So I don't know how to like segue, and I don't know like because I do want this, I obviously want this podcast, to be about you and like, just listening and hearing about this. But just to give you a little bit of my background, because it
Yeah.
is similar but like very different, and and I just think people would benefit from hearing about this kind of like two different sides of things, where like
Yeah.
I got sober at 21, and you know
Sick.
yeah, and so I'm 36 now, so I've been sober. In August it'll be 15 years, clean and sober, right? And I was kind of one of like the, I'm not going to use this word, like victims for lack, of like, like the Oxycontin getting flooded, right? And it like
Yeah.
found its way into my community in college. I touched it. I was
Yeah.
hopeless. I was already vulnerable, right? I'd been abusing
Right.
drugs and substances since I was 16. For whatever reason, they just fit
Right.
because there were whatever fucking chemical imbalance I have, or spiritual maladies of just being vulnerable because I wasn't in a good place. I wasn't self-confident. I didn't know what I want. I lacked purpose, right? So I was a
Right.
vulnerable prey to like what we were talking about at the beginning. And it came to the point where I was like pretty fucking helpless, because like we said,
Mm,
substances like it weakens your will for it,
mm,
right? And so like, I mean, I never really gave it a good honest shot to like manage, because like for me it would have been like, hey, why don't you give it a good honest shot to get in the ring with Mike Tyson and keep doing
yeah.
that. As like eventually I'm like, I'm not gonna waste my time. But so I got exposed to the abstinence world. Well, I shouldn't say I didn't give it a good honest shot, because the first time I went to treatment was like a day treatment program. It was like I was in the middle of college. I did it like on my winter break. I spent a winter
Right.
break in rehab, and then I went back to college, a party school, and I really gave it like
Yeah.
a good honest shot. Like, I had to be on like Suboxone, the
Yeah. Yeah.
withdrawal or maintenance withdrawal med, for opiates.
Yeah.
So I tried that. And I went like a good amount of time without drinking. Eventually after like 6 months or so, I kind of tried a little bit of controlled drinking, but alcohol wasn't my main thing, right? But I mean,
Yeah.
that is another thing that they'll teach you in abstinence spaces, like you can't do anything, because then that turns into your addiction. or or so either that turns into your new addiction, or it just weakens your will, and
Right.
it'll bring you back to your other one. And I mean, I think there's some truth to that, just because like if I'm relying on something else, right, and not that internal form of happiness, right, I'm more
Yeah.
again susceptible, because I'm miserable, fuck it, I don't care, I have nothing to lose. Or you just make a
Yeah.
dumb mistake and you get that going, right? So you know so I relapsed pretty bad, started doing worse shit. I wasn't like super indoctrinated at that point into AA or anything like that. I like went to I like did NA. I went to
Yeah.
NA and I was like, it was kind of weird, because like I wasn't like resistant. I'm like, I totally need this. And I think I was just like, part of me was excited to like be part of a community and like be around people. So I embraced it. But then like when it came to the spirituality part, and that's where I think 99% of people get hung up, is when the G word gets thrown out, or even higher power.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I was kind of, and then and then within the steps, a lot of that is around higher power. So I didn't really get
Yeah.
into it. So I kind of like, I didn't fully embrace, I kind of did like one, step one, and just kind of hung out there,
Yeah.
and then, but then I ended up relapsing, and, kind of really brought me to my knees, because like I
Yeah.
always had thought, I'm like, if I have a significant enough reason to be, so like if I ever even fricking tried, I actually had this like weird self-belief, that like I could do it. And so I tried it and I failed. And that is, and so
Yeah.
like to me, in my mind, at least in my thinking at that, it proved me wrong. So therefore I went to treatment.
Right.
I went to an inpatient for 4 months. And then I went like way out of my zone. I was down south. I'm from the Midwest. I was down
Yeah.
south. I did a 4-month inpatient. I did a 3-month outpatient. I lived there for a year. I like went balls into AA, and from then,
Damn.
yeah, well,
Wow.
and what the interesting thing was, like, I was like a total shithead in treatment too. Like nobody thought like I would, and some of this goes to your point, but there's different ways of looking at it. But so I was in treatment, and
Mm,
kind of a young shithead or whatever. No one would have guessed that I'd be sober. Like, because
mm,
probably I think there's a very good percent chance of everybody within that 4 months that came in
mm.
and out of that place, maybe like 100 people or something like that, that were there from the time I got there to the time I left, and beyond that. I'd be surprised if there was one other person that was still bone dry sober, right?
Got it.
It's weird, right? But and I'm just trying to, and it's not like a brag or like, it's again, it's like almost an anomaly, right? Because so many people they try different ways, it doesn't matter almost what they try, they
Mhm.
fail. Right now, one of a few things happened. One, they just relapse a few times, then go to AA, and they do pretty well. There's another
Yeah.
group of people that are just going to get knocked on their head, and then eventually they find some form of homeostasis, and
Right.
not in AA, not in anything. Maybe they mature, they realize it's not enough, but then like a third of them are going to just like continue the process. Addiction's going to have hold of them. Eventually they're going to die or just continue to be miserable. And that's just like my experience,
Yeah.
in those. And I think where AA kind of maybe gets it wrong is thinking that like once you get to that point where you're in treatment, it's either
Mm.
this or this. And then there's not this middle ground of people finding a different way. Um,
Right.
Again, it's difficult to do, but I think it happens quite a bit. So
100%.
and I guess I'm just like, this is all leading to the fact that like I'm still in AA. So after like all this time, I still,
Yeah.
and it's okay you're talking shit about it because because like, and it's weird because I straddle this line that I'm a professional
Yeah.
dealing with addiction. Doesn't mean I'm
Yeah.
your sponsor by any stretch of the imagination. But
Right.
I'm also in AA, and it's weird because I straddle these two worlds, and
Yeah.
similarly, like the world of mental health, depending on who you are, and especially because
Right.
of this big harm reduction movement, AA is
That's
kind of this like old, antiquated, and kind of like what you're doing is like a form of harm reduction, um,
100%.
in many
Yeah.
ways. And so, like the harm reduction people hate the AA people, and it's just like. So like I live in this middle world because like in my practice of addiction, very few people will I ever recommend going to AA.
Right.
Some, right? Because so many people who come, right, are problem drinkers, maybe not alcoholics. Um, and so not everyone do I feel is appropriate for AA. So like as someone who's
Right.
been in AA and I know what it is, I know what it's supposed to be, I know what it's not supposed to be, I know like, and I think there are very much, how could there not be flaws to a program that was made in
Right.
1935 and hasn't changed, right?
Right.
So I do have like my own criticisms of it, yet I still go. Yet
Right.
there's certain things I kind of hold my nose to, or like I
That's
don't throw the
good.
baby out with the bathwater. I see the forest through the trees, like that kind of stuff. So that's why it was interesting to hear, and see
Yeah.
your TikToks. I know that you're obviously not like an AA guy,
No,
but
I'm not against it in any way. And I want to bring this to the forefront.
yeah,
As you described that experience,
yeah,
there is a massive state of evolution in your psyche. You're
yep,
not the same person. You're not. You
exactly,
can't be. If you
yep,
were the same person, you wouldn't have learned the lesson, felt the feelings, did the things, had the experience for you to have the conclusions that you can go to AA and disagree with this, that, and the other, and still utilize that as a staple in your success.
yeah,
It's the truth. It doesn't feel like a dependency. It feels like something that you respect. And because you respect that, you respect either what's being taught, how you feel, what you receive from it, or just the experience in general. You're not approaching it or involved in it from a place of lack or desperation. That is a major reason why AA doesn't work. is because we are lacking, we are desperate, we're searching.
Yeah.
Every answer for everybody is themselves. So through all of your experience, you learned exactly what doesn't work for you. You learned exactly what you don't like. You learned exactly what you do like. And from that state of conditioning, you're able to make very conscious and very healthy decisions. And it doesn't matter. The point is that you are in control of your life and you're excited to be around. And that's amazing. You're changing lives, brother. Like I told you this, my life is better because you exist. Your conditions, I'm not going to judge you for being in AA. That'd be ridiculous. I don't judge anybody that's in AA. I don't hold
Yeah.
like grudges or anything like that. I think it's beautiful. There's things about Beyond Sober that people don't like, which is why I refund people on occasion. I go like, dude, try it for 2 weeks. If it's not for you, go to AA. That's another option. You can have your money back, man. Like
And
whatever.
yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I want to bring it up, because I think that there should be more alternatives to
Mhm.
AA, and its approach, because it views addiction in a certain way. Some of
Mhm.
it still lines up with some of the medical understanding of addiction,
Yeah.
um, and but then again, I'm kind of that ilk that I was talking
Yeah.
about before, is like I kind of want someone to try, like I said, like in my practice, like let's try everything before AA, because like you said, it
Right.
is a blunt instrument. It is like, all right, look, there is this commitment to not using it all. Now, the good part about that is like if you are able to get there and build that momentum and find happiness without it, right?
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like why drink, right? Just like your situation's
Exactly.
a little different, but the thing, like,
Yeah.
and I asked you that question before, do you think you could drink without, and be able to control it? You're like 100% yes.
100%.
Right,
Yeah,
that would be,
absolutely.
like people in AA are like, Bill Wilson is turning in his grave right now hearing you say that, right? Like that, like you go to an AA meeting and say that, people be like, whoa, okay, that's
Yeah,
not
like
our
this
that's not our
like I don't
view.
want me there.
That's not our view whatsoever, right? And again,
That's
I
a
have a
shit.
little bit more of a nuanced view, I'd like to think, than a lot of people, the
Right.
hardcores in the program, where like that's the doctrine. There
Yeah.
is like kind of a dogma, there is a doctrine to it.
Mhm.
It's definitely, I do push back. You didn't say this, but I push back,
Yeah.
when people, it's a religion, it's a cult, like,
Yeah,
no,
it
but
feels like it. Certain areas feels like that.
it
Yeah.
does, and we get, and I guess part of me like feels a little bummed that you like had such a bad experience with it, but the reality is that people do, and what's
Yeah.
good and bad about AA is like kind of the lack of regulation in some ways, because
Right.
like anyone could form a meeting. Every meeting has a different culture, every meeting has a different vibe. Some meetings
Mhm.
may be more focused on like the problem, but there are certain tenets of AA, and I think a lot of groups and
Mhm.
people who are fallible, fall short of it.
Right.
So
Right.
like, like what you were saying, like I'm not gonna like disagree, because that was your experience and that is what happened. That's the
Right.
reality. But that's not what the program is supposed to be. You're not
No.
supposed to go and fucking bitch and moan and actually there is like, I almost think to a toxic degree sometimes. I say like, I don't want to hear about your fucking problems, right? Like, because AA is all about solution, right? The only step
Right.
that really talks about alcohol is the first step, and saying,
Right.
admitting that you're
Wow.
powerless, and
Mhm.
everything else is about solution, has nothing to do with drinking. It's about change. So a lot of the stuff you're saying, I think actually maybe does line up with AA a little more than, but again, that's your experience. You had, like, I think maybe we'll call it like toxic AA. And some meetings are
Yeah.
going to be, and that's why I always recommend people, like, if we're going to try AA, go to like 5-10 meetings, because there's going to be
Yeah.
one you go to that you're going to like, oh, this feels kind of culty, right? Or this feels a little weird, because
Yeah.
some people too, who are vulnerable going to meetings, they're searching for something they don't have, right? So AA
Right.
does become the religion, and I think that's fine to have your spirituality through that lens. But when it becomes
Mhm.
a religion, when the big book becomes your Bible, when
Right.
when you start treating it like a religion, then that may be fine for you, but it pushes other people away. That's not what the
Right.
program was supposed to be about. But
Yeah.
that's the kind of the difficult thing, so that's kind of like bums me
That's
out, just in
that's
a general
yeah.
sense with AA.
Yeah, that's where I go. AA was designed for a specific type of person struggling in a specific type of way. It doesn't work for most people, which sounds messed up. It works for a lot of the people that go, but there's a whole entire universe of humans that know at their core that they're not going to learn, they're not going to grow, they're not going to develop. It's just going to be a place for them to suffer. And so they'd rather suffer in silence and suffer at home instead of adopting a religion and feeling a part of a cult and developing these behavioral traits that are outside their character, minus their coping mechanism. That's the trippy part. That's why a lot of people go like, AA makes me want to drink. AA makes me depressed. It makes me anxious. Well, they're not to drink, yet you need a drink to be there. Whoa, this is conflicting emotion and conflicting like neurological fight or flight, sequence that activates for certain people. And as you mentioned, man, what's really, really important is that people are constantly in this search for something that they don't have. Yet we're not taught that we have everything. You are searching for a feeling. We are searching for an experience that could only be experienced from within. Everything is from within. Everything starts with the thought, the feeling, and emotion. So from that, this is also why we don't do things. I don't want to break up with that person because I don't want to feel like this. I do want to get involved with that person because I do want to feel like this. This is why I say the worst thing that will ever happen to us is an emotion. At the end and the beginning of everything is a feeling. And we're searching for something that we are responsible for. This goes back kind of full circle to destination happiness, thinking that at the end, when you get that degree, you deserve to be happy and that happiness is your reward, opposed to searching within and recognizing that the only reason happiness exists is because you do. And that what you're searching for in the bottle is something that you've created for yourself and you are in control of. You just haven't accessed it. It's so important that we recognize that everything is this interesting type of coping mechanism. Even a podcast, man. How many of you are just chilling going, I love this. This is the best thing I've ever heard, right? Hopefully. You've got a feeling. Don't get addicted. I'll give you too much of this. You won't stop coming back, that's the point. We feel a certain way.
That's what I'm saying. AA is not a cult. I'm trying to be a cult leader, right? As an influencer.
You technically have more of an influence from the digital space than AA, which is the whole thing. This is another major attribute of Beyond Sober and TikTok and all these different digital communities is a lot of people suffer from social anxiety. A lot of people are seeking relief from that specific feeling, including myself. That's why I drink so much, social anxiety. So that's why when there's programs that are digital, you can be naked in your beanbag chair eating Cheetos and still becoming a good person, a better person, developing new techniques and feeling safe, not feeling forced, not feeling like you have to contribute to something you don't agree with. Keep in mind, I say all of this because I recognize how similar we are, not how different we are. When I speak to people, I don't necessarily speak to the individual. I speak to the core of that human. We are all human. We all have the same emotions, same feelings. What we do with them makes us individual. That becomes our identity. How we use those emotions and apply action and take action, that's what identifies us as someone we are or someone that we aren't, someone we want to be or someone that we don't. And so the only way that we could develop or invest in a solution is to recognize what isn't going to work, what we don't like. And that's why you're in such a powerful place of influences, because you know what works, not just in general, but for you as a human, you as a person. If only 1% of the planet was just like you, that's 75 million people that think the way that you do. That's a lot of people that AA is for, that could get results and probably will get results for.
Yeah.
But what about the other,
Yeah,
99% of people?
yeah, I mean, I kind of like conflicting views with this, not like with you, but like even like in my own
Yeah,
head, with this
yeah,
point because, I deal with this, right? So again, I'm in between two worlds. I'm in the
hmm,
professional world, which is more harm reduction based in general, right? Unless you're like working in treatment centers, and even here in Minnesota, it's moving in that direction for better or
right,
worse. Mostly better, because I don't think the two things are in conflict as much as people make it out to be. I think both
right,
very much have their place, and when we say AA, but like abstinence based recovery, harm reduction, I think there should be that like myriad of options. And I think a couple things. First, one of the reasons why I think a lot of alternative programs don't gain steam and don't, because like AA is very dominant because it's been around. There's millions. And that's one of the good things is that there's like, especially in Minnesota, this is the number one place in the world as far as the amount of
dude.
meetings and sober community.
Yeah,
This is where abstinence based. This is where even just anything came from. It came from Minnesota.
yeah,
All addiction treatment, everything, this is like the epicenter. So
yeah.
there's a great community. So, and I keep going on tangents, but so like, for example, like this last weekend, it's called the Gopher State Roundup, right? So it's like a Minnesota, AA convention basically, where it's like 3 days. And, like of
Yeah,
that time, you had about, usually there's probably more, but like with COVID, it was the first time we had it in like a few years. But there's like 6,000 people that came in from all over, and it did. I was joking with my friends. It did kind of feel like a little bit of like a multi-level marketing scheme meeting, like at like, but because there we had the like you have the main speakers like it's like speakers all day, food, like it's a lot of fun. But like I really
yeah,
like going to these, which is like the 7:30 meeting when they fly in these some of the best speakers from across the country.
yeah.
So it's highly entertaining and good. But one of the things they do is the first night, Friday night, they do a sobriety count up. And so basically they say everybody stand up. So everyone who has 1 day, less than a year sober, sit down. Everyone that has 5 to 10, right? So everyone sits down, and you're in this room of 1,000 plus people,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden everyone's looking around because you're waiting for the person who has, and then you get to like the one person standing up who has 60 years sober, like this old person. There's something like very powerful about that. But
Yeah,
so that's super cool because you get to see like the oldest guy in the room. But then on the second night you have like a sobriety countdown, right, which
yeah,
is the other way, which is eventually you get down, everyone sits down until you get to the person with 1 day. And there's something like very powerful about it. um
yeah,
so there's, I don't even remember where the hell I was going with that, but like what I
yeah.
was,
I feel you.
yeah, so like what I was going to say is that one of the arguments I sometimes make with AA is not for me, which I do believe that that's the case. For me, it's like more like if you're not severe enough, let's just like make it that simple. If you like
Yeah, got it, got it.
AA is
Yeah,
really meant for the severe. Now, if you could be less severe and get it, but if you drink the Kool-Aid a bit and you say, you know what, fuck it, like I'm just gonna not drink
yeah,
because I'm gonna get all these
yeah,
benefits. Where like for me, I have this insane network of people. I could owe a lot of my success to specifically AA and the network,
yeah,
the fellowship, which translates in your the community, right? Which is
yeah,
so
yeah,
powerful. So then when I
yeah,
talk to, so most of the people, like if I were to go to an AA meeting now and say, how many of you felt AA was not for you at one point and like vehemently believe that, most people would raise their hand. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And so I think that one of the reasons why maybe more people feel that than what may actually be true is some of the
yeah,
flaws in AA, which is the using of the word God, right? Because that's the
yeah.
number one reason why people don't like it, is because people use the word God.
Mm,
And I'm agnostic, right?
mhm,
I don't like
mhm.
drink the Kool-Aid with that, but I do believe, and I got a good friend who's like a brainiac. He's an atheist, but he's like diehard. He did like a dissertation on AA, right? He's
Yeah,
like diehard about it. And so I believe that there is a path within AA for the atheist and the agnostic that may not be in the traditional sense, right? So I think AA shoots itself in the foot, and I understand why they don't want to change, because there's such a like an incredible tradition, right? It's like
Right.
people are a little more conservative. I don't want, it's just like a big ship. Like I don't want to
Big
change.
word. Conservative.
I
Yeah.
don't want to
Yeah.
change this, and I understand that, but then it really it pushes a lot of people away that could benefit from it, and then therefore AA isn't for them because of these reasons. But I do, but again, to your credit though, like I think what your program seems to do is like fill in a lot of these gaps and really these like higher minded, higher level like paths to happiness, because I do believe there are certain like universal wisdoms and that AA teaches you, like there is parts about radical acceptance and
Yeah.
like making, living a more like clean life of, making better decisions, just being a better person, living more honestly, um, you
Right.
know, and this is like a double-edged sword, but like kind of, radical accountability, like almost like extreme
Yeah.
ownership. The problem is that
Yeah.
gets taken too far and then people get
Yeah.
shamed, right?
100%.
And then they come to you, which is good. But I think AA, it's like sometimes there is that element of, if you don't buy in, exactly to like, we're going to shame you if you go relapse. I think there is a lot of that too, like, oh, you didn't. The spirit of AA should be to, help the people that relapse that come, but then if they go, there's still that element of, oh, I come back and then I have to get my 24-hour chip, right? I just got,
Yeah.
and that's what I liked about a lot of the criticisms that you made of AAs, which what I agree with, of like, and wise people in AA will say, like it's a day at a time, right? Doesn't matter if you have it doesn't matter if you have 20 years or 5 days. It's more about the quality of recovery. Yet you're coming in
Right.
and people are going to judge you, and you're going to get that
Right.
24-hour chip, and you get that one taken away and here's a new one,
Yeah. Oh my
right?
goodness.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's powerful, man. Thank you for bringing that um to the forefront, man. That's a lot of depth in AA, and I honestly didn't even know that they went to those lengths and they had those types of, we'll say, conventions. One of the You're right, man. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of we'll say core elements that AA focuses on that I like to approach in a completely different way. Maybe not even completely, but from a more core humanistic standpoint, from a more who you are standpoint, opposed to the condition. And one of the things that you mentioned is the count up, which is 60 years, right? Hasn't had a sip of alcohol, but is still an alcoholic. That person hasn't consumed alcohol, isn't
Mhm.
addicted, isn't emotionally dependent, yet is still an alcoholic. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't feel right. If they have nothing to do, they could be around alcohol, they could do all this stuff. We ask people like this all the time, and actually have people in the Beyond Sober community ask their grandparents that used to or still identify as an alcoholic. Grandparents, 60 years, haven't consumed alcohol, don't have a problem with alcohol, making margaritas for the family, literally behind the bar, no problem, doesn't live in fear. Their life isn't derivative of how little alcohol is in it, still identifies as an alcoholic.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
programming is so, it could be and is toxic to someone that doesn't want to identify with their problem.
Yeah, and I think that's a bit of the like drink the Kool-Aid thing, is like when you go, it's weird if you don't say you're an alcoholic. Now, you know, the
Yeah.
and so I agree with everything you're saying, but to put a little more context to it, like the motivation behind it is that like
Mm.
when you dig deeper into it, you're really supposed to say you're a recovered alcoholic, not like you're an
Mm.
active, because like in AA there is a differentiation. Like when we do the steps, when we break free of that mindset, when we break free, because like in AA there's two parts. There's the physical allergy, right? I put it in my body, then I crave it and I want more, and
Yeah.
I'm back there. So what they're saying by
Right.
saying I'm an alcoholic, which means I acknowledge that the second I put that drink in my body, I'm going to physically crave it, but I'm also going to have that spiritual malady, like you were talking about. So that's
Right.
like what they're saying. Like when they say I'm an alcoholic, it's saying that I recognize that if I go do this, I will
Right.
no longer be recovered. Now, I think the argument to that would be is some people find the path to recovery, um, and learn to control their drinking. Now, that is very
Yeah.
taboo in AA because so many
Huge.
people struggle with that. And it's,
Yeah.
without, and I would say this, without like seriously proper guidance, like let's say
Right.
your program, because your program like has a lot of the same elements that do make it
Yeah.
successful, which is I like over time, like in helping people make behavioral changes. And I'm curious to know what you, if you agree with this, but I find that there's, I call it the tripod method because there's like three things that you need to make any
Uh-huh.
behavioral change, right? Which is so why habits are so important.
Yeah.
Is one, you need motivation, right? You have to
Right.
have a reason to do it. To do something difficult, you need motivation, and it's dynamic. Your motivation wanes, waxes, but also there are things that you can do to increase your motivation, like hanging out with you, who's like a super motivational guy. There's like a million things you can do. But once you have that, you
Right.
say, okay, I have the motivation to make this change. Two is having accountability, right? Like
Yeah.
having this group that you like, I know I'm going to show up to, whether it's therapy, I know I'm going to be going to my meeting, there's this sense of accountability. I know that here are the disincentives for doing it, but here are the incentives for doing it. And then the third is like
Right.
having a good plan, having a structured plan on how I'm going to make this behavioral change, because no matter what the habit is, right, whether it's biting my nails or doing heroin, it's all a
Yeah.
habit. So I'll ask
Fact.
people, I say, okay, what's the difference between a habit and an addiction? They're like, oh, and I just say, like, nothing really. Like an addiction is a habit. It's just a really fucking bad one that's harder to break. Like it's the same
100%.
principles though. And
I
actually,
love.
and the fourth thing, I actually came up with this later. I'm like, should I add this? Should I make it a table now? Or like, but I'm like, no, this kind of sits on top of it, which is a commitment,
Yeah.
right? And it's just in that moment, I'm going to commit to doing Khodi's program. I'm going to commit to doing 2 weeks. I'm going to commit to not drinking. Or like in your
Right.
case, saying, I'm going to commit to that one shot method. I'm going to commit, right? And just for the alcoholic and the other, the AA view would be like, good luck with that because, when you drink it, but
Yeah.
it's possible. And people do it, even people who are more
People
severe are
do it
able
all the
to
time,
do it,
man.
but because they have this motivation, they're highly motivated, they have this accountability, and they have structure in your program, they have a path. The plan is a
Yeah.
carved path that you have carved for them, and
Right.
then they make that commitment. So it makes sense to me how people can also be successful in your program.
100%. The thing is that you can have all the tools and resources and everything, but if you don't have the right mindset or a blueprint, dude, it doesn't. It's to your point. This is actually what this tattoo means, man. These three lines. These are the
Mhm.
three things you need to
Yeah,
be successful in life, right?
yeah,
You gotta have the right mindset, right? Or
yep,
not have it, but be working on it, which goes towards motivation. You're not going to wake up with the discipline. You're just going to realize that you've been doing something that is moving you forward, and you go like, dang, I'm pretty disciplined. So you got to be working on your mindset. You got to be actively developing habits or working on new thought patterns that make you go, you know what, dude, I'm either done with doing this or I'm excited about doing that. It's almost the same thing, but with positive reinforcement. You're more excited to achieve something. I'm excited to feel like this. I'm excited to, have clear thoughts or clear
yep,
actions or whatever. So you got to be working on your mindset, right? That's how we view life and ourselves.
uh-huh.
Then we need specialized knowledge, brother. Specialized knowledge. That's the tools, the resources, and the education on what our steps are, on what to do, how to do it, where to go, what are when this happens, that happens. When you do this, you get that. Specialized knowledge is anything that we can use to get ahead in life. In this case, you've used your experience in NA and rehab and all these other locations. You have more experience than I do. I never went to rehab. I never went to AA. I
Mm.
just died. That's my experience. That's the knowledge that I obtained. It's special knowledge. Most people don't have that information. So because I have that, which is step two, the last thing is a blueprint. You got to know what you're working on, man. You gotta have steps. You got not. I don't mean 12 steps, but you got to know what your life looks like at the end of this or through the process.
Yep.
What are you building? What are you doing with that mindset and those tools and resources? Are you just sitting pretty on the couch, once again, naked in a beanbag chair, eating Cheetos, Netflix, and chilling with yourself? If you're not applying your mindset and that knowledge to anything, then you're just festering in this revolution of thought. So you don't actually go anywhere. So you can't necessarily have one or two without the other. You got to have these three things. And even if your goal is just to develop these three things, then you have purpose and drive and motivation. That's the reality with it. And this is why I say, dude, I can lay out the core fundamental elements of success and happiness, but it's 100% up to you how you apply those resources. One of those resources could be AA. One of those resources could be spirituality, like meditation. Works for me.
Yeah.
Could be the gym, could be more water, could be podcasts, could be YouTube, could be TikTok, could be, it doesn't matter. In the quantum realm of all things possible, anything that doesn't have alcohol involved or your substance involved is the right answer, is the right direction. Anything that's moving you forward or pulling you forward is going to help you unlock your purpose. This kind of full circles back to what you were saying earlier about purpose. One of the most powerful things that I learned is any person that doesn't feel they hold purpose seeks pleasure.
Yep.
Constantly.
Yep. 100%.
If you have no reason or you don't feel that each one of your steps is moving you in a direction derivative of who you actually are, your most authentic self, or you don't feel like you're serving a portion of yourself where it doesn't matter if you get a result, you're still satisfied with the outcome, then you seek to fill that void or disconnect from that feeling of not having purpose. This is why so many people just continue to drink. The trippy part about this, I even have a shirt. I have a merch store called Moral Army. One of the shirts is just the phrase, "You are your purpose." If you feel that you don't have purpose, remember this, your purpose as a human being isn't outside you. You are your purpose. You are the reason life exists. You are life having a human experience. And if you don't have direction, you're not working on your degree, you're not building a house, you're not even building a family, or you are, and it just feels repetitive and you're not going anywhere. You got to remember this. None of that matters if you aren't serving the purpose of self, if you're not growing as a person and enjoying the machine, the body, and the environment of your mind, then you're constantly seeking something that is within you. You're looking outside of the reason you have sight. You're looking for you. Once we start to recognize that our personal growth also becomes addictive, then we have a positive addiction to expansion. We thrive and motivate ourselves because we're so excited for each one of these steps, because we know that as long as what we're doing is helping us become happier, healthier, and stronger, we'll always be serving our purpose because we're living it every single day. The only way to put yourself in a place to recognize the depths of your purpose and the reason behind it is to put yourself or give yourself permission to be in a clear state of mind so your consciousness can actively guide you towards the things that move you forward.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a couple really interesting things that you said there. One, I mean, one of the things I harp on with people, or one of the things I really believe, which is backed by, very basic behavioral science, right, is I think where people maybe get it wrong in AA, and it's not because of AA, but kind of like we were saying, that problem focus, right? And like in your case,
Yeah.
right, there's this fear. So like if like for Khodi, like if you literally the only reason you didn't drink was because you were afraid
Mm.
of, which is probably a healthy fear, right? So
Yeah.
there's right. So like there's the beginning of the sobriety process, or like AA or whatever, is like, hey, you just walked out of hell, Aren't you
Yeah.
afraid to go back there? And you're more afraid to go back right when you've gotten out. But then that's why as like time goes by, you kind of forget, right? Just like the bad relationship, you kind of, you
Yeah.
kind of gloss over it and you're like, oh, maybe I could go back and this was fun and,
Big
whatever.
cloud, right?
Right. So AA and other programs, and still, hey, and that's why I think one of the benefits kind of is like whenever you go to a meeting, you're acknowledging that you were there and you remember it. So it makes it hard to forget what this was like, which is good
Right.
because you want a healthy fear. However, my belief is that will only take you so far. I don't think
Right.
at least quality sobriety is very unlikely to be maintained by fear of the negative,
I
by
love it.
punishment.
Quality sobriety. Yeah, man. Don't count the days, make the days count. Yeah,
Yeah, well,
100%.
it's all about what do you have to look forward to? Like, why are you like, what are the good things? Because usually when you get sober, just on the fact that you're not, because when you're drinking, you put all this fucking energy into sustaining the beast, right? And it's like a
Yeah.
bond, it's like a fire, right? It's like the bigger the fire, the more you got to throw into it to keep that fire big. And when you get
Yeah.
addicted to that big fire, you keep doing that until it starts dying down and you still got to throw the same amount in.
Right.
But so by nature of that, when you stop using, um, good shit starts to happen. Well, why is that? Well, you're not putting all your energy into this
Into
one thing. And that's why
right.
honestly I think alcoholics and addicts tend to maybe on average be more successful than others. Like
Yeah.
when they stop drinking, I think there is like a weird creativity and talent and intellect that sometimes
Yeah.
people have, that are more
Yeah.
grown, and there's some research there. But I think that it's more you're getting out of your own way, and you are,
Mhm.
you're showing up to the world differently. Therefore, different opportunities open up. The universe, the world interacts with you. It's not magic, in a different way because you're showing up differently. So, oh my God, all
100%.
these opportunities I'm getting straight A's in school. I never got straight A's before. Well, yeah, you were busy using, or you were just wrapped
Yeah.
in depression or whatever it was that led to it. Right. So,
Right.
therefore, looking forward to those positive things and the benefits that you get out of recovery, feeling healthy, being happier, having more opportunities, having a little more money in the bank. Like for me
Right.
now, like, yeah, I got a fear. I don't want to, hell no, I don't want to go back to what it was before.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I've accumulated a lot of like real tangible things that I don't want to lose, and that includes, some of it is material, like money. I don't want
Yeah.
to lose that, that I've built
Yeah.
over time. But I don't want to lose like the network that I have. I don't want to, there's things that I've come to enjoy, right? So it's more now I'm driven by positive reinforcement, which is
Right.
important. And then
100%.
you mentioned purpose, which I think from a deep psychological level, no matter what, if it's addiction or anything else, having a sense of purpose is one of the most powerful things that you could have.
Mm.
Have you read like Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning? Have you heard of
Mm.
that?
I haven't. Yeah, I've heard
You
of it.
haven't?
I haven't read.
Oh, you
No.
got to read it. I mean, because it's the whole book. I mean, I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's a guy who was in the Holocaust, but he was also like a physician psychiatrist, right? So he
Yeah.
basically was almost like an experiment in a way where he, had this chance to observe human behavior in its extreme. And kind of
Yeah.
the whole thesis of the book is that like the people who are most likely to survive had a purpose, right? Because it's
Yeah.
so easy to give up. And so that and being able to get through the most horrific thing possible, the people who
Yeah.
didn't tended to have a sense of purpose, a reason
Right.
for it's like we're happier if we have a meaning and a reason for our suffering, because there will always be suffering, right? So I
Yeah.
think that like kind of what you're saying definitely fits into that.
That's amazing, man. I love that healthy fear. It's okay to be afraid. I encourage it in certain aspects. I still have these very unnecessary fears, man. I'm super paranoid for some reason. I'm usually like the strongest person in the room, most fit person in every room, and no one's really gonna mess with me. But I was raised around people jumping out of trees, then beating me bloody and leaving me for dead. So I got this PTSD, man. But with that, I kind of like embrace that and go like, oh, I'm just taking care of myself. The trippy part about those that struggle forward, which is what I encourage. This is when I talk about it on TikTok and even in Beyond Sober, is you're going to struggle no matter what. When you start struggling forward, it means that your struggles themselves hold purpose. You recognize that the depths of the emotional weight, the anxiety, and some of the depression. I still deal with this stuff not every day, but the point is that it shows up. Is that when these struggles show up, you're not in fear of going back down the rabbit hole. I'm not in fear of losing anything because I know what to do with nothing. I'm not in fear of obtaining everything because I know what to do with everything. My conditions have given me the experience to go, pain is pain, struggle is struggle, happy is happy, sober is sober. So many people, whether it's entrepreneurs or business owners or people that have found purpose or actively work towards purpose, they know the struggles. They know that those were all resources for them to learn from. And so a part of my conditions, the part of my peace that I give myself permission to feel and find every single day is going, I've been to hell and back. This is nothing. This is nothing. This is nothing. You yelling at me? This is nothing. I've been through worse. Been through way worse. I've literally survived. So have you, brother. Every single thing that's ever happened to you, your success rate is 100%. And we pretend like it's not going to be okay. So many of us who haven't been encouraged to embrace that fear or that feeling or the absolute use that fear to stop them from taking action. I'll say this from an interesting perspective from yesterday, walking back from the gym. I would never think this. The old version of me would never think this. I saw these dark flames, right? Dark smoke over these buildings. Normally I'm sitting here just like meditating on my way back from the gym, feeling really, really good, really strong, very productive and successful. I see these things and my first thought is, damn, I hope everybody's okay. And the second thing is, I wonder if there's anything that I could do to help them. And I'm watching the smoke get darker and I'm like, holy crap. So I start walking faster. Maybe I'm in the right position. Maybe I'm the one in the ninja outfit that's going to save the family. Who knows? The old version of me would look at that same situation and go like, no, I'm going to let that, no, that's the fire department's thing, right? Yeah. Somebody's over there. I don't need to worry about this. Forget them, whatever. But the reality is utilizing that fear of going, I got this. I can handle this. I want to handle this. I've been ready for this. I've been prepared for this. I've been through worse. I know what I can and can't handle. I know that at the end of everything is just a feeling. It's just a feeling. What do I want to feel? And that becomes a part of my motivation for me looking to see, is there a fire truck around? Thankfully, there was a fire truck. I couldn't see, comes around the corner. By the time I got to the street, the smoke was gray. So it's been handled. The point of that is when we give ourselves permission to feel like absolute shit, then we have purpose in the emotion. We utilize those horrible feelings that we're supposed to feel as a guiding force to take action towards not having to feel like that, not feeling like we're a victim of an emotion, but we are in the driver's seat of our consciousness. That's how we feel like we're in purpose, man. That's why we take action. That's why we move forward. That's why we take care of us.
No, yeah, it's an awesome way to look at it for sure. I mean, I never thought of it that way, but yeah, I mean, in the simple sense, I mean, yeah, like, from the perspective of, addiction, sometimes fear is what brings you in, right? It's like what gives you that first step, but everything after that, there needs to be more. But hey, I want to respect your time, man. I got to pop off here pretty soon, but is there anything like, where could people find you? Where can we get more Khodi Rain in our life?
Absolutely, man. So the easiest place to find me, I'm all over the place. You could Google me if you wanted to, Khodi Rain. Khodi is spelled Kohdi. I'm on TikTok as Khodi.Rain, Kohdi.Rayne. Obviously, I have the Beyond Sober program. So you can go to beyondsoberprogram.com, or you can Google Beyond Sober program or just Beyond Sober. You'll see me right there. My website is ChodiRain.com or ChodiLLC.com. And if there's anybody that enjoys this podcast and wants to jump further into the conversations that we have on TikTok, you can go to either Spotify or iTunes and take a look at Beyond Sober Podcast. It's literally everything we talk about on TikTok.
That's cool. Yeah,
We just take that audio and put it there. So those that are driving that want to step into the, how does Khodi bring awareness to the depths and fears of alcoholism and help you transform while sitting in a room full of neon lights and yelling at random people, you can get that on the Beyond Sober podcast, or you can follow me on TikTok and watch me live. But yeah, man, this is the primary places you can find me.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, dude, I really appreciate you coming. This is a fascinating conversation. I'm sure you and I could rap about this stuff for another an infinite hours here.
4 hours.
Right? So
100%.
Yeah, we'll
I'm
definitely
more
have to
than
do this
happy.
again. We'll have to stay in touch and maybe do this, do a part 2 here soon.
100%. Thank you so much for having me, brother.
Yeah,
Thank
man,
you for bringing awareness to that.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on.